Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Was in God of High School and Had Moonlight Sword Part 4, Chapter 13. Part 1. Jiraiya vs Naruto. The fight between cage-level shinobi had spread around like wildfire as everyone had wanted to watch the fight. Tsunade would be lying if she wasn't surprised with how well the announcement was received. The amount of spectators were larger than anything the Chunin exam could ever hope to rival. As such, they had to make time to prepare extra seats for the spectators who are eager to see the match. A lot of people were eager to watch the match, from academy students who were accompanied by Orochimaru. It was obvious that the Chunin instructor was not only eager to see his student once more, but to also have his own students learn from watching Naruto fight, even if they might not understand, but seeing the level of such powerful shinobi will surely motivate them to work harder. The Jonins had their own window in which they sat along with their respective team, watching as one of their own was made to challenge a Sannin in a battle. All of them were excited to see the growth of Naruto over those 2 years in order to better rate themselves, while also seeing the level that they should all aspire to aim for. There were also the clan heads and those who hold important positions in the village had their own window in which they got to watch the match without any problem. The clan heads were definitely excited in their own way to watch the battle, while some of the civilians were skeptical, since most of them weren't aware of what was happening outside the village. I really wonder if Jiraiya can really be the one to force Naruto to take the fight seriously, asked Tsunade to herself, but Kiyomi had heard and let out a small smirk. I'm confident that Naruto-kun can win this fight, but if I'm being fair, Lord Jiraiya has a very high chance to have Naruto-kun work for the win, since the difference in level between the Yondaime Mizukage and Lord Jiraiya is fairly large. So I'm expecting Naruto-kun to struggle a little, said Kiyomi, trying her best to stay objective and not be biased, which surprised Tsunade by Kiyomi's assessment. Well, I do hope the fight can last longer so we can better assess his skills, said Tsunade before she glanced at the excited crowd. And because I'm pretty sure everyone here would like to see a good fight and not a short one, said Tsunade while Kiyomi giggled. Lord Jiraiya has a lot of experience compared to Naruto-kun, which is what will give him the edge in battle, but Naruto-kun has always been the type to adapt to any situation and quickly improve himself while fighting. This is why he went to Kurigakure and took part in the civil war, and that's because he wanted to gain experience, explained Kiyomi, which helped Tsunade understand why Naruto had recklessly gone to Kurigakure during a civil war. I could see that he had grown stronger from that, even though I never really liked how reckless he was to go to Kurigakure on his own, said Tsunade, a little annoyed that Naruto had thrown himself in danger. He wasn't technically alone, he had his mom by his side who was willing to help him, and then later on me, said Kiyomi, correcting Tsunade's previous statement, which made Tsunade frown slightly. Tsunade trusts Naruto, even though he can often do reckless things even back when he was a fresh genin, but nobody could deny that the boy had all good intentions to protect the village, and that was shown through his action that resulted in their many alliances that was forged because of his nature to stick his head into other people's business in order to help them. Still, the whole situation surrounding Naruto's new mother was driving her nuts, not only because the council would definitely give her a headache once news reached their ears, since most would think that the Kyuubi is masquerading as Naruto's mother, and even though it may sound ridiculous, but Shukaku had previously done this by having Gaara call him mother. Aside from that, she was also curious, and the fact that there are no records of a Miryu drove her nuts. She wanted to know her intention and her purpose to just suddenly take Naruto from Jiraiya without the idiot himself being aware of it, since apparently from what she had heard, Naruto had made contact with Miryu during his training with Jiraiya. The fact that Jiraiya was clueless of Naruto meetings with Miryu definitely surprised her. Kiyomi was easily able to spot Tsunade's reaction when mentioning Naruto's mother. She wasn't going to reveal anything since it wasn't really her place to do so, and it was up to both Naruto and most importantly Mira herself to decide to reveal information, but in order to put Tsunade's worries to rest, she decided to say a few things. I wouldn't worry if I were you, I have met Mira and I'm very familiar with her, revealed Kiyomi, surprising Tsunade that she had noticed what was bothering her. She is planning to reveal herself at one point, probably at a council meeting, where she's going to probably threaten to kill everyone in the room if they were to ever put Naruto-kun in harm, and maybe even kill some idiots while she's at it, said Kiyomi bluntly while Tsunade's sweat dropped heavily and had to wonder what kind of woman Miryu is. Well, that's good to hear, said Tsunade, a little relieved that she will receive answers at one point, but hopefully it wouldn't take long since she was getting quickly impatient, but she could only blame her Uzumaki blood for being quite short-tempered. Naruto stood at the training ground, his eyes darting everywhere, carefully assessing his surrounding area and trying to find anything that stands out or doesn't stand out, since he knew that Jiraiya is a spy master, so the guy will probably use surprise attack to get advantage in their battle. Naruto was not really concerned when fighting against Jiraiya, he knew he was stronger than Jiraiya since he is capable of a lot of destructive feats which he had demonstrated the previous day in the bell test. He wasn't overconfident nor arrogant to believe that the battle will be easy, but rather he knew that Jiraiya will be a tough and an annoying opponent to deal with, but if he gets rid of any hiding spots that Jiraiya might try to use, then it will be Jiraiya's loss. In terms of physical strength, he was clearly superior considering the harsh training that he had endured under his mother training regiment. The only thing that would cause him trouble would be the toad summoning, especially the synchronization between Jiraiya and Gamabunta which he had witnessed in their fight against Kabuto and Orochimaru during the search mission for Tsunade, but as long as he can avoid it, he is guaranteed a victory since those require a crazy amount of chakra consumption. He also has his Chariok up his sleeve which in itself is quite powerful and will put him at the level of the likes of Hashirama Senju, who's considered to be the most powerful shinobi that to this day is unrivaled, but that was all due to the man's wood style, but that's beside the point. Are you ready, kid? Asked Jiraiya in a firm tone, apparently having gotten the resolve needed to fight his former student into a battle. I'm ready as long as you don't underestimate me, this battle might be the hardest and most challenging, so don't take me lightly. Said Naruto warning Jiraiya that he won't tolerate him underestimating him which Jiraiya had nodded his head at. Naruto immediately pulled Bongxian from its sheath. It was a little bit overkill to pull a national treasure from the beginning, but Bongxian was the family heirloom of the Yu clan, so he used it with pride. Jiraiya, in response to Naruto drawing his sword, immediately took a fighting stance. Naruto immediately launched himself towards Jiraiya at a surprising speed which took Jiraiya off guard. Jiraiya had reacted by hardening the hair on his head and shooting a multitude of hair senbon at Naruto, who wasn't the least bit surprised, since this was one of the basic techniques that Jiraiya tended to use in any of his fights. Naruto immediately displayed his superior swordsmanship by parrying all of the senbons, even when Jiraiya had increased the speed, but he could only keep the technique for a few seconds before he had to stop noticing that not even one of his hair senbon had hit Naruto at all. Naruto, seeming unfazed by the previous attack, had continued moving forward with his speed not even slowing down as he launched an overhead slash that Jiraiya had immediately reacted to by jumping away just in time as his sword impacted the ground, causing the ground to be split in half, followed with a large crater, but not to the same intensity as his heaven splitter. Scary, what kind of training did he undergo to get this ridiculously strong, Jiraiya thought as he tried to suppress the shiver that went down his spine as he then weaved through hand signs. High release. Flame bullet, Jiraiya declared as he had gathered oil in his mouth and spit it out before igniting it. This resulted in a flame bullet to be launched at Naruto, which in a surprising twist of event, the flame bullet that was meant to slow down Naruto or at the very least wound him a little, was cut in half by Naruto's sword. Due to Jiraiya's surprise, he wasn't able to defend himself properly as Naruto appeared and did a diagonal slash that cut through Jiraiya's shoulder to waist, but it was a shallow cut since Jiraiya did a seal-less substitution jutsu that resulted in a trunk to take the full brunt of the attack that shattered it. The crowd was roaring in excitement. It was only a few minutes in the battle and things were already getting exciting. Some people were expecting that Jiraiya would be the one to overwhelm, but at this point it seems that Naruto was the one who was overwhelming Jiraiya. All the attacks launched by Jiraiya were being parried away easily by Naruto, who was not even fazed by its lethality. The fact that Naruto had even split a C-rank fire jutsu had sent the crowd into a frenzy of excitement, especially the kids at the academy, who were the most excited out of everyone. That's nuts, I thought the rumors about him were just an exaggeration, but to split a C-rank fire jutsu is insane. Asuma was the one to comment as his cigar that was resting in his mouth had fallen on the ground because of his shock. Despite being a wind user, he happens to know quite a good number of fire jutsu, and the flame bullet was not a technique to sniff at since his father, the Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, had used this technique quite often when in battle, so he knew that it was a very powerful technique. Amazing, I don't think I can ever do that, said Kiba in amazement. He can't even do something as cool as that. He knew Naruto was in a league on his own, and it frustrated him a little to say the least. So that's the level that he had achieved as expected of Naruto, who has a penchant for surprising us and surpassing our expectation. Commented Niji, who was able to regain his bearings and smiled acknowledging Naruto's strength. How youthful. I will train very hard in order to one day be able to cut a C-rank jutsu with my bare fist, and if I can't do that I will do 10,000 push-ups with one hand, and if I can't do that, Lee seemed to start ranting as he had gotten excited over seeing Naruto cut a flame jutsu with his sword and was determined to do the same thing, but with his bare hand. That's right, Lee-kun, Naruto-kun has shown us how youthful he is, it's only natural that we respond by displaying our springtime of youth. After all, Konoha will need its new master swordsman, and what better than Konoha having its Taijutsu master. Guy encouraged his student as he clenched his fist with determination, while everyone had decided to ignore the two of them. This is really amazing, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I never really thought that one can cut a jutsu with a sword. Said Tenten, being known as Konoha weapon mistress, she never really thought that swords are capable of something so amazing in her own eyes. Well, there aren't many master swordsmen in the village anyways, so we don't really know if Naruto is the only one who can pull something like that," said Ino, being amazed as well. "If something like that was possible then there would have been many swordsmen in the village," said Shino as he adjusted his glasses. It was his own way of saying that Naruto was the only one capable of such feats. "Shino is right, I know a master swordsman in the village, but she is not capable of something like that." Kurenai was the one to comment as she was surprised until she managed to calm down. "And Naruto-kun sure is amazing," said Hinata, twiddling with her fingers as she was amazed at what she had witnessed. She realized how strong Naruto is, and she glanced at Kiyomi from afar and knew that the girl was at least that capable, much to her jealousy. Sakura and Kakashi watched in astonishment. They were able to take it much better than the others because of the bell test where Naruto had done even worse than cutting a C-rank fire jutsu. Still, Sakura could only lower her head in shame. Naruto had grown much stronger than she could have imagined. At this point she was eventually going to become a burden on him and her new teammate who she knew was capable of at least that much. It was only Kakashi's hand resting at the top of her head that she didn't fall further into a state of self-pity for her own weakness. Naruto-kun had grown stronger, but so did you. "I think you've grown quite well from back when you were unable to fight your own battles," said Kakashi with a small smile, trying his best to encourage her. Sakura had definitely grown stronger from back when she was unable to fight her own battles and had involved others in her fight because she was weak. That was the case in the Chunin exam where Rock Lee had gotten injured because he tried to protect her. The same thing applied to when the retrieval mission for Sasuke had started and she wasn't picked to be part of the rescue team because she was weak and would have gotten in the way. Now, Sakura is able to fight her own battles without burdening others, but it didn't mean she was any less bitter about her being the weakest link in the team. "Thanks, sensei," said Sakura, feeling a little bit better with Kakashi words of encouragement. Jiraiya had realized that fighting Naruto in close combat is dangerous, especially when Naruto is swinging around that sword that looks way more dangerous than a regular sword. He knew his only way to be able to turn the battle in his favor was to disarm Naruto from his weapon and force Naruto into a hand-to-hand combat, which he should prove to be superior at. Jiraiya had immediately decided to do something risky. He launched himself towards Naruto, surprising the boy with Jiraiya's decision to fight in close quarter and decided to be on guard as he attempted a slash only for Jiraiya to dodge at the very last second and had created a Rasengan in his palm, sending the hand-sized spiraling ball into Naruto's wrist. Jiraiya had immediately decided to do something risky. He launched himself towards Naruto, surprising the boy with Jiraiya's decision to fight in close quarter and decided to be on guard as he attempted a slash only for Jiraiya to dodge at the very L. The result was an explosion that sent Naruto flying along with Bongxian to be separated from his hand. Jiraiya had immediately jumped towards Bongxian and took the weapon, placing it in his sash and gotten slightly relaxed as he gave a hockey smirk as he watched Naruto stand up. Naruto was definitely surprised by Jiraiya's last-second attack and had to give the man credits for taking him off guard like this. He looked at his hands, which were slightly burned and definitely stinged a lot, but that level of attack wasn't enough to hamper Naruto. "What are you going to do now, brat? I have you disarmed," said Jiraiya in a boastful tone as he believed that the battle had gotten into his favor while Naruto was slightly unfazed. He could easily re-summon the sword to hand but decided to show Jiraiya that even with him being disarmed, he could still fight. "I have to admit, that took me off guard, but disarming me won't change anything," said Naruto as he launched himself towards Jiraiya, who was definitely surprised but smiled nonetheless. Having trained under his mother Mireyu, he had managed to master the swordless style, so he had focused on his bare hand to act like a sword. His body was like a sword, so whether he was disarmed or not, the battle was still in his favor. Jiraiya, who was confident that he could overwhelm Naruto in hand-to-hand combat, had launched himself and engaged with Naruto in close combat. Admittingly, Jiraiya was definitely superior in terms of hand-to-hand combat, but Naruto's swordless style had left Jiraiya's body with several cuts. Jiraiya, using his own experience, had launched a knee towards Naruto's stomach that made him cough a little blood, but Naruto had retaliated back by uppercutting Jiraiya towards the ground. The battle was intense, and despite Jiraiya's superiority over Naruto in hand-to-hand combat, Naruto had a crazy amount of stamina which Jiraiya, who was in his 50s, no longer has. Naruto immediately decided that he was at a slight disadvantage in hand-to-hand combat and decided to return his advantage as he jumped back to gain distance. "You're good, I know you're better than me when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, so I will take back my sword," said Naruto confidently while Jiraiya smirked a little. "Thanks for the compliment, brat, but last I checked, I have your sword," said Jiraiya as he held onto Bongxian that was on his waist. "So unless you can take it from me, you will have to fight me in hand-to-hand combat, which I'm better at," said Jiraiya boastfully. Naruto only smirked as he raised his hand, and the sword immediately glowed, which brought Jiraiya's attention at the sword on his waist, and before he can even realize what happened, Bongxian had disappeared from his sight, and a glow reappeared in Naruto's hand, revealing the sword that he had took from Naruto. "How?" shouted Jiraiya in surprise. His former boastful demeanor vanished immediately as he became increasingly concerned by the turn of events. Bongxian is a national treasure, it's a sentient sword that was passed down in the Yu clan. Bongxian has vanished from your waist because it doesn't acknowledge you as its master, and since I'm its master, it answers to my will," said Naruto, haughtily relishing in Jiraiya's shocked expression. He had essentially turned the tables against him, and he could hear his mother giving him an approving smirk. Naruto had given Jiraiya the hope that he had the fight under his control, but from the very beginning, he was controlling the battle, and Jiraiya was just simply falling for it. The crowd were roaring even more in excitement. At the beginning everyone thought that the battle was finally over, once Naruto was disarmed by Jiraiya's ingenious plan of using the Rasengan at Naruto's wrist at the last second in order to disarm him of his weapon, but Naruto had showed them that he was not over-relying on his swordsmanship and was able to keep fighting Jiraiya in a hand-to-hand combat even though Jiraiya proved to be superior in that field due to his years of experience. To their surprise, Naruto had managed to somehow take the sword back by having the sword teleport back to his hand. Many were confused, but hearing Naruto's explanation, a ripple of shock was immediately sent through the crowd. Naruto practically admitted to having a weapon that rivaled the weapon of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, maybe even exceeded, since the sword can teleport back to his hand with a simple command. "Wow, I'm really jealous to have a sword teleport to you with a simple command, I really want one," said one of the shinobi that was in the stand as he closed his eyes, imagining his own sword that teleports to him. "I know how you feel, man. That is really cool, but I think none of us can use it properly like he does," said another shinobi with a smile, enjoying the fight. Well, I'm glad that it's someone from the village that has it. It would have been really scary if Naruto had decided to join another village," said the first shinobi with a smile, acknowledging Naruto and showing his respect. "Yeah, I really feel ashamed of myself for judging him so quickly back then. I don't think anybody could have blamed him if he decided to join Kurigakure, which I'm sure he is already being treated as a hero there," said the second shinobi, showing his respect to Naruto as well and acknowledging him as a shinobi of the leaf. Everyone was quite entertained and Tsunade was enjoying herself quite a lot. She had been shocked when Naruto had first cut a C-rank jutsu with a single slash and was slightly annoyed with Kiyomi's smug look. When Jiraiya had disarmed Naruto, she thought that the fight might end since Naruto had shown that he was only a swordsman, but Naruto had displayed a good hand-to-hand combat that is highly dangerous in itself. Naruto had later done something so outrageous when he teleported the sword back to his hand and even explained that he practically had a sword that is only rivaled by the blades of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Tsunade then looked at Kiyomi, who seemed to cheer loudly for her boyfriend, not even caring at what others thought about her. "Why are you surprised? Shouldn't you have been used to this already, considering that Naruto-kun has a habit of making the impossible possible?" said Kiyomi as she looked at Tsunade, who let out a sigh. "You're right, why am I even surprised? I should have been used to this, but that's simply concerning me, his level of growth is nuts," said Tsunade while Kiyomi understood what she meant. "Can you really say that? Big brother Itachi had awakened his Sharingan at the age of 6 and mastered it at the age of 8-9. He became an Anbu captain at the age of 13, where kids his age should be Genin level shinobi," said Kiyomi while Tsunade's sweat dropped a little. "Well, you can't expect me to be surprised. Naruto was definitely strong back then, but he was only a low chunin to mid chunin at best when he's at base, and only his Kyuubi chakra and his unpredictability that managed to push him further," said Tsunade. She was by no means saying that Naruto was weak, but you know that he has a lot of untapped potential. I'm sure that you've seen this at one point, especially when he mastered the Rasengan in a week. He just needed someone who is willing to watch over his training and not ditch him," said Kiyomi, making a jab at Jiraiya and Kakashi, as the former has a habit of going to brothels and a habit of spying on women at the hot spring for inspiration for his book. The latter, on the other hand, had his hand tied because of the council ordering him to train the last Uchiha, and his emotional problem had made him a bad teacher in the eyes of Naruto since Kakashi had thrown him to Abisu for chakra control training. You're right, he had a lot of potential even back then, but to think that this is the level of strength that he had achieved under a good mentor. I have to admit, Miryu had done a fantastic job at raising him and maturing him in just 2 years. It makes me wonder what would have happened if we let him continue the 3-year training," Tsunade said, acknowledging Mira for having trained Naruto to this level of strength that he wouldn't have achieved with Jiraiya. Jiraiya had finally realized that the table had been turned against him. He knew that all his jutsu in his arsenal would prove useless against Naruto as the fight dragged on. In his base form, he was weaker than Naruto by a lot and would need to use tricks like the one he did when he disarmed Naruto off the sword, but that proved to be fruitless since Naruto can re-summon the sword whenever he felt like it, so Naruto is always at his best. The only way he can gain advantage is through his summoning jutsu. He had hoped to not be forced to use it, but at this point he needed an extra hand. After all, he is Jiraiya of the Toad Sannin, which means that he is famous around the Elemental Nation for his ability to synchronize with the Toad boss Gamabunta. It's just like Naruto's father, who was known around the Elemental Nation as the Leaf Yellow Flash. He was known to use toads not only for spying, but also in his battles. He was impressed that Naruto had forced him to use such force in his battle, and it showed that Naruto had grown stronger to challenge him at his best. "I've underestimated you, Naruto, but no more. It's time I show you why I was called the Toad Sannin," declared Jiraiya proudly as he bit his thumb as signal that he was going to use the summoning jutsu. Naruto responded to this declaration by waving his sword in a circular motion that gave an illusion of several swords that overlapped each other. "Bring it, Jiraiya, I won't lose easily. I still have a lot to reveal yet, but let's see if you're strong enough to have me fight at 100%. Said Naruto. As arrogant as it may sound to others, Naruto was hoping that Jiraiya would be the first to give him a good fight. Mira is much more stronger than him, so Naruto didn't include her in the list of the people, since he has a long way to reach her level of strength, but if Jiraiya had proven that he is capable of contending with him, then there is a chance for him to grow stronger as well and learn something from his opponent. Everyone in the stadium knew at this moment that the warm-up was over and the real fight was about to start, and everyone couldn't help the excitement of seeing the two of them get serious. Chapter 14. Part 2. Jiraiya vs Naruto. So cool. Konohamaru's voice could be heard as he had just recently come to the village from a C-rank mission, and he was glad that he was able to come in time to witness such a high-scale battle where his brother figure and boss is fighting a Sannin as equals. He was a little miffed out because he wasn't in the village when Naruto had come back, since he probably would have liked to get the chance to brag and show Naruto the apartment that he himself had taken to cleaning for him in preparation for the day when he returns to the village. "Wow, I didn't know that swordsmanship is really that powerful." Yuden was the one to comment as he was mesmerized by what he had bared witness in just those few minutes in battle. "He really looks good with the white hair. I didn't think he would look so attractive," Mogi commented with a dreamy look, while Konohamaru can be said to be slightly irritated by the comment, having taken offense in it. "What do you mean you didn't think he would look attractive? You make it sound like boss wasn't handsome before," said Konohamaru while Mogi let out an irritated sigh. "I never said that he looked unattractive before, just that he looked even mature from back then, which is a good thing," said Mogi, kind of regretting speaking about Naruto looks since Konohamaru idolized Naruto way too much and would probably be easily offended if someone were to talk badly about Naruto. Ibisu on the other hand was gaping like an idiot at the fight that he had been witnessing. He, like all other shinobi of Konoha, had heard the tales of Naruto achievement in Kurigakure, and like most others, he suspected that it was just an exaggeration. He knew that Naruto had of course grown from back then, but there are things that when you hear, you can't believe it because it's just not natural and way too crazy. Now the proof is laid in front of them, only a few minutes in the fight, and Naruto is pushing Jiraiya to a corner, even forcing Jiraiya to resort to the summoning jutsu, which is a privilege only the toughest opponents had ever forced him to use, such as Orochimaru, who shares the rank of a Sannin. This is crazy. Naruto wasn't capable of something of this caliber to be able to challenge Jiraiya-sama in a 1v1 after only 2 years of training. Have we really underestimated Naruto's potential that much? Thought Ibisu bitterly as he looked at the fight, trying to recompose himself, but just like all shinobi in the stadium, he knew that the warm-up was over and he couldn't help the excitement. Jiraiya was slightly unsure if he really needed to go so far as to summon the Toad clan in his fight. Even though Naruto had proven to be much stronger by managing to compete against him for this long and even overpower him, he felt like it was unfair to use the summoning jutsu, but he knew that Naruto wasn't going to appreciate him holding back. "Are you going to keep fighting me with that weak resolve?" said Naruto, a little bit irritated to see Jiraiya doubt his strength after saying that he was not going to hold back anymore against him. "I was just thinking that it would be unfair to use the Toad summoning like that, not that I doubt your strength, but I only used a summoning jutsu when other summonings were involved or even Biju," said Jiraiya with a weak grin while Naruto had grown even more irritated. "You're seriously upset about that? I was being quite merciful to you when we had our little warm-up, but if you're going to continue pissing me off like that, then I will use the shadow clone and bully you," said Naruto with a sadistic grin which made Jiraiya eye widen in horror, realizing that he forgot about Naruto's shadow clone jutsu. "On second thought, I guess that's fair," said Jiraiya, laughing awkwardly and a little embarrassed that Naruto had been taking it easy on him before he weaved through hand signs, deciding that he needed to bring an end to this fight before it gets dangerous. "Ninja art. Summoning bring down the house jutsu." Jiraiya shouted the name of his technique, which resulted in a giant toad to drop on Naruto from the air. Naruto looked unfazed by the annoying tactic that Jiraiya had deployed. He realized that it was an attempt to incapacitate him, so he decided to teach Jiraiya another lesson on underestimating him and thinking that someone so insignificant could pose him a threat. The moment the large toad made contact with Naruto, a storm of debris had exploded covering the battlefield. "Sorry Naruto, but I don't think you can block something like that," said Jiraiya, confident that his attack would have worked only for a gust of wind to disperse the storm of debris, revealing Naruto casually lifting the large toad in the air with only the tip of his sword. "What the hell?" shouted Jiraiya. This had taken him off guard. He had used that summoning quite a few times to crush other large summoning, but for Naruto to casually lift a large toad with the tip of a sword was so outrageous to him that he couldn't help but gape. "Are you done? This is really boring. If you're serious about taking me down, then stop using those stupid tactics to win," said Naruto as he launched a terrified and shocked toad towards the forest, resulting in Gamma Hero to roll through the forest, destroying several trees in the process before he was forced to return to Mount Myaboku. "Crushing me isn't going to work," Jiraiya said, Naruto with a smirk, enjoying the look on Jiraiya's face that expressed disbelief. He was quite proud of himself since he had wanted to recreate that technique that his mother had done during the Go tournament, and he was so successful at it that he couldn't help but puff his chest in pride and act smug and cool about it. Jiraiya was beet red in anger at seeing Naruto act so smug about it and decided to finally summon Gamabunta and teach the brat a lesson about not looking down at the gallant Jiraiya, as he then went through several hand signs for another summoning jutsu. "Summoning jutsu," shouted Jiraiya. This time a large smoke covered a large section of the forest, obscuring the fight from the crowd that were watching before the smoke went down, revealing the toad boss Gamabunta. "Jiraiya, why did you summon me, you bastard?" shouted Gamabunta, being quite annoyed since he was in the process of enjoying a good bottle of sake, only to be suddenly summoned by Jiraiya, who has a habit of summoning him in bad times. The entire Konoha populace were gaping widely when the real fight had started. What shocked them all was how Naruto had managed to lift a large toad with just the tip of a blade. Some of them had seen how powerful the toad is during the Sound Invasion 2-3 years ago, and they knew it was something that they don't want to be at the receiving end, but Naruto had casually lifted the toad with ease, and they couldn't blame him for being so smug about it, since they would have done the same in his place. Seeing Jiraiya summon the toad boss had sent a ripple of shock. They never expected that Jiraiya would go so far as to summon the toad boss to fight against Naruto. This was no longer a fight to determine Naruto's rank, but rather the two of them were getting carried away and might kill each other. "At Jiraiya, he's taking this too far." Tsunade clicked her tongue in annoyance as she bit her nail in frustration, contemplating if she should put an end to this fight before it could get so far. "I don't think he's taking it too far. You seem to forget that Naruto-kun had fought against Yugura and defeated the man with ease. Jiraiya will lose if he were to continue underestimating Naruto-kun," said Kiyomi in a serious voice that surprised Tsunade. "Since you know Naruto the best, how much percentage is he using?" Tsunade asked, wanting to get a good assessment of Naruto's strength, which Kiyomi easily complied. It's really hard to come up with assessment of his strength since he never really took his fights seriously, but Naruto-kun easily overpowers Jiraiya at base form. The only way for Jiraiya to actually do damage is use cheap tricks like the part where he tried to disarm Naruto-kun from his sword," said Kiyomi, which Tsunade found herself agreeing with. "Yeah, lifting a summoning toad is not something easy to do. I doubt even anybody could do something as outrageous as this," agreed Tsunade, seeing as Naruto base form alone made him capable of lifting a summoning toad, and that was just his physical stats without any enhancement. Jiraiya can actually push Naruto-kun to a corner if he uses the toad boss, but that would be only for a few minutes before Naruto-kun decides to retaliate by either using the shadow clone like he had stated or to use more of his power," said Kiyomi before she decided to give a final conclusion. "In conclusion, if we were to evaluate him, I'd say he is superior in physical strength, which was displayed by his lifting strength alone. He is also known for his speed since he can blitz his opponents and cut through them before they could react or come up with counterattacks. As for durability, well, just as he can lift a mountain-sized toad, he can also shrug off attacks that would leave any normal person with several broken bones or even dead," said Kiyomi, before she decided to add more, while Tsunade was speechless. "There is also his stamina. Even before his training trip he was considered to have a lot of stamina for his age. After his training he can continue fighting even if he is dead, since I've seen the training that he was put through. Not to mention his Hexwell stamina is something that shouldn't be underestimated. He's a total beast both in stamina and size," said Kiyomi with a small nosebleed that took Tsunade off guard and made her disturbed by how shameless Kiyomi is. Mira had definitely rubbed off on Kiyomi. "You seriously have problems. You need help," said Tsunade as she looked at the Uchiha girl who doesn't have the stuck-up attitude that resulted in her caving many Uchiha faces in the past. "You're like me, but the difference between us is that I don't hide what I want, but you hide what you want. Life is short, so why should I waste my entire life trying to suppress my desires and then end up regretting it?" Being a shinobi means that we live every day knowing that we might die on a mission. I'm sure you've seen many of your friends and family die, and you have many regrets when it comes to them," said Kiyomi, not filtering her words since Tsunade needed to hear it. Tsunade should be angry, but couldn't find herself getting angry since Kiyomi was right. She remembered her brother Nawaki's death, her lover's Dan death and Jiraiya who had been pursuing her, even when she had hit him almost all the time for being honest with how he felt about her. Without knowing it, she had been suppressing herself almost all the time. We live in a world where shinobi are sent to kill for the sake of their village prosperity. We live in a world where child soldiers are a thing, where children are sent to fight in adult war. We live in a world where hidden villages create jinchuriki for their selfish wars and then end up abusing them just because of their fear," said Kiyomi as she recited the dark nature of the world they live in, which made Tsunade flinch when the word jinchuriki was mentioned. Every shinobi has something that keeps them sane. For Jiraiya, he peeps on women and writes his smut book because that is the only thing that helps him not think about his many failures. Kakashi reads smut books in public and does eccentric stuff to keep himself sane. Naruto-kun proclaimed his dreams loudly to hype himself up and convince himself that he can become Hokage. He also did pranks around the village, from graffitiing the Hokage monument to an entire city block to get his mind off his feeling of loneliness. You also cope by drinking sake and gambling, even when you know that you're not good at it. Kiyomi continued that Tsunade couldn't help but shed a small tear. "Stop running away from yourself, you have a lot of people around you. I only have Naruto-kun, since my entire clan are killed, my adoptive family are killed, and my 2 siblings are now a rogue shinobi, with Sasuke going after Itachi for revenge. I don't know if I can save the 2 of them, which is why Naruto-kun is the only thing that gives me strength to look forward to another day," said Kiyomi with a smile as she watched Naruto fight. Tsunade felt like her whole tantrum that she had thrown all those years ago to be stupid and childish. She had Shizune, who had been by her side from the very beginning, tolerating her whenever she went to gambling that resulted in her debts increasing. She had her sensei, but he was killed by Orochimaru without even having the chance to see her or even get the chance to witness her being crowned as the goddamn Hokage. She had Jiraiya, who after many decades together had still loved her even when she had hit him and treated him as an idiot and a pervert, but Jiraiya so far had been honest with himself. After returning to Konoha to become the goddamn, she had created many bonds that she had come to cherish. From Naruto, who had first saved her from herself and had even reminded her of her little brother Nawaki, making her even more attached to him than before. There is also her apprentice Sakura Haruno, who, while she disliked the girl's obsession over Sasuke, she still loved the girl and saw her as another daughter and had trained her so she wouldn't go through what she did. You're really wise and strong to be able to smile like that. It makes me think that I have been throwing a lot of temper tantrums in the past," said Tsunade, feeling ashamed of herself. Kiyomi could only giggle at the Hokage, who smiled. "Well, I have cried a lot in the past and have blamed the world quite a lot for my bad luck. I just realized that there is no way to bring back time, so I decided to simply adapt and do something with my life." Naruto-kun had also been there to give me a shoulder to cry on, and while he never cried, but his mother had always been there for him. Whenever he's around her, he's like a small child wanting her attention. The 2 of them when left together tend to do crazy stunts," said Kiyomi, laughing as she remembered some of the many crazy stunts that were pulled by the mother and son duo. Tsunade smiled in amazement and realized that Naruto, who had watched other children enviously for having parents, had made him relive his childhood, with Mira being willing to take the role of a mother in his life. She really felt ashamed of herself for not noticing Naruto's suffering. Jiraiya had taken to jumping on top of Gamabunta, who was not in the least bit amused by being summoned so suddenly. "Jiraiya, why the hell did you summon me, you bastard?" shouted Gamabunta. "Sorry Bunta, but I really need help in this fight. You see, I was meant to test Naruto to see if he is eligible to become a Jonin, and well, everything I've thrown at him is useless, and if I don't take him seriously he might kill me," said Jiraiya nervously as he pointed at Naruto, who didn't move from his place to allow Jiraiya to summon the Toad Boss. Gamabunta looked at the ground and was surprised to see the same blonde kid, but now with white hair. "What the hell? Is that the same brat who threw a lot of tantrums?" asked Gamabunta in disbelief, which irritated Naruto quite a lot and decided to be extra harsh on Bunta. "Shame on you, Jiraiya, to be overpowered by a kid so easily and to need me to fight your battle. You're getting rusty," said Gamabunta, reprimanding Jiraiya, who felt embarrassed by being scolded. Naruto decided to use Falchion, which is Lu Bu trademark hair adornment. With Naruto now using his Cherryok, this meant that his stats would increase dramatically. If Jiraiya thought that Naruto was strong before, then he was in for a rude awakening when he saw Naruto using enhancement to boost his overall stats. "Time's up, Booker," said Naruto fearlessly as Bunta looked at Naruto before he had to draw his sword at the last second as Naruto blitzed towards Bunta, clashing his sword against the large Yakuza sword of Bunta, resulting in a large shockwave to appear and uproot several trees several kilometers from the current battle site. Amabunta felt scandalized at this very moment when he found himself being forced to crouch down, as a large crater formed underneath him as a little brat the size of an ant is overpowering him. He could hear Jiraiya laughing at his expense and was planning to have a nice chat with the pervert after this is over. What's wrong, Bunta? You were saying that I should be ashamed to be overpowered by a brat, now you're being overpowered by the same brat, said Jiraiya mockingly, while Bunta was getting angry. Fuck you, Jiraiya, once this is over, me and you are going to have a long chat. Said Gamabunta, which made Jiraiya pale a lot, knowing that it won't be anything pretty. Can you really afford to look away, you oversized frog? I'm gonna make you my new frog wallet after this and will be confiscating that sword to add it to my collection of swords. Said Naruto with a grin that made Bunta and Jiraiya shiver at the situation they were put in. Naruto brought the sword behind his back for extra power and then slashed another time against the large Yakuza sword, causing a large tremor to appear, while Gamabunta was trying to block to the best of his ability, but due to Naruto's size, it was a very strenuous task. Gamabunta then retaliated by a slash that sent Naruto away and into the forest, but he knew that won't be enough to harm Naruto. Jiraiya, we need to do something before the brat comes for our head, said Gamabunta, realizing that Naruto was no joke, and Jiraiya nodded. Moonlight sword style. Galaxy split, shouted Naruto as he released a slash attack that resulted in a forward vertical slash to be released, extending further than the length of the blade and uprooting more trees, while at the same time wounding Gamabunta. Gamabunta cursed in pain as he jumped away, realizing that he was wounded and that Naruto had recovered quickly. Gunshot, shouted Gamabunta as he kneaded and converted his chakra into water, resulting in Bunta to shoot out a condensed blast of water at Naruto. Naruto grinned as he launched himself like a rocket towards the water blast with a fearless smile as he raised his blade one more time for another technique. Mountain slash, declared Naruto another time as he split the condensed water in half, resulting in a large rain to cover the field, but it didn't touch Naruto, who was airborne and launching himself towards Bunta and Jiraiya. Bunta, give me some oil, shouted Jiraiya as he went through a series of hand signs which Bunta had cooperated with. Okay, shouted Bunta as he placed both his hands on his stomach and took a large inhale, as if ready to spew the oil from his mouth. Higher style. Toad oil flamethrower, shouted Jiraiya as Bunta had shot out a jet of oil from his mouth before Jiraiya followed with spewing a blast of fire onto the substance to ignite it. This resulted in a large flamethrower to appear on the battlefield. Naruto was taken off guard, having first assumed that Bunta will need time to do another jutsu after releasing gunshot, so he could only internally curse. The two-way cooperation technique looked unavoidable to anyone, but Naruto was not going to easily give up, so he created a last-second shadow clone, who proceeded to grab the original by the arm and flung him away from the attack, which resulted in the clone to take the full brunt of the attack, but it didn't mean that the original came unharmed, since he was slightly burned. Naruto, who was flung away, had impacted the ground a little harshly, but he came out with the least bit of damage, which was a good thing. He was using his Chariok, so his durability had increased quite a lot, but having a fire jutsu of that magnitude is something that would have hurt him a lot. Naruto then stood up quickly, ready to retaliate, while both Jiraiya and Bunta were quite surprised by Naruto's ability to think under pressure and ability to stand back. The crowd were roaring even more than what was thought possible. Everyone thought that Jiraiya had gained advantage with the Toad Boss that was used by the late Yondaime Hokage to fight the Kyuubi, but they were proven wrong when Naruto used his Chariok and managed to force Gamabunta in the defensive for a few seconds. To be able to split attacks made by a well-known summoning clan is truly impressive. The one to comment was Hiashi Hyuga, who looked in pure awe and astonishment at the fight. Anybody would be wary of a summoning clan like the Toad clan, but to charge forward without any fear takes a lot of courage and guts. Tsumin Yazuka was the second to comment, grinning in a very typical feral manner at seeing such an entertaining battle. Not to mention his ability to think under pressure is truly impressive. For him to use the shadow clone in such a manner shows good coordination between his clones. Shiba Aburam commented, giving Naruto credit for his ability to think under pressure, which not many possess. I think his lifting strength is the most impressive. I never heard of a person capable of lifting a summoning toad with the tip of a sword. If you ask me, that requires a lot of concentration that most people his age lack. Said Choza, taking more interest in Naruto lifting strength than his strength in general. It really scares me how much he has grown in just 2 years. I really hope that our children could be inspired by Naruto's strength and not be easily discouraged. Said Inoichi with a smile as he looked at his daughter from afar, hoping that she was watching and was being motivated. Still, I'm more curious about the weird thing on the top of his head. Shikaku brought everyone's attention to Naruto's Chariok. Well, from the looks of it, this weird thing is probably responsible for his increase in stats. Probably something similar to an 8 inner gate since he is able to compete with the Toad Boss, Choza commented, which the others nodded their head at. Also, I'm quite curious, why did he choose to avoid the attack? Shouldn't he split the attack like he did before? Asked Inoichi, bringing up another good point. Even if Naruto were to split the attack in half, he would have been in the middle of a powerful flame jutsu that would have harmed him, so he chose to instead dodge that attack. It was a very wise decision to avoid an attack of this magnitude. Hiashi answered as he nodded his head in appreciation of Naruto's ability to know when there are things that he needs to get away from. Well, at least he knows when there are things that need to be avoided. He had come so far from back when he rushed blindly in battle. Shikaku commented appreciating such a trait from Naruto, as the others nodded their heads before he looked at the Hokage, who was equally shocked by the battle as them and everyone else. Well, I think Naruto deserves to be promoted to a Jonin. Nobody can ever complain about him being undeserving of the rank, nor can anyone deny that his achievements in Kurigakure were just exaggerated tales. Shikaku spoke his thoughts to everyone who nodded their heads. I don't think anybody can deny him that rank, Inoichi commented as he chuckled a little and pointed towards the many shinobi of the village, who had a few things to say about the battle, not to mention the academy students were already getting in the mood of the fight and were doing slashing motions in the air, as if imitating Naruto. Well, at least the next generation of Konoha are highly motivated, which is both troublesome but also a good thing to see and hear. Said Shikaku with a smile. Naruto might actually be able to become Hokage like he said before, he's already at the level of a Sannin and he's still what, 14 or 15? Asked Choza as everyone understood what he meant and they could already see with the support of the shinobi of the village and some of the civilians coming along to acknowledge Naruto's strength, Naruto might actually secure his position as the Rakudame Hokage. Chapter 15. Conclusion. Jiraiya vs Naruto. Naruto stood confronting Jiraiya and Gamabunta, whom he had to admit were both troublesome individuals. If they were going to continue with the same tactics of using high-scale combination jutsu, then he might have a lot of trouble dealing with them. This was the most trouble he had ever had, not even Yagura had given him this much trouble. Then again, Yagura, despite being a very strong opponent whenever he went into tailed beast mode, he became more animalistic even if he was in control of the tailed beast. So it was easy for him to read his movement and take him down. Naruto decided that he needed to end the battle before Jiraiya could start using more of his troublesome techniques. He then crouched slightly before he launched himself like a bullet towards Jiraiya, who was alarmed, but at the same time, he kind of expected something like that from Naruto. "He's coming," said Gamabunta as he expected for Naruto to somehow clash swords with him, but to his surprise Naruto was looking to fight Jiraiya instead, so he was able to dodge the sword strike that was aimed at him and use the steel of the blade to run on it and reach the top of Gamabunta's head. Naruto swinged his sword in a horizontal slash in an attempt to remove Jiraiya's head. Well, that's at least what others would see it, but Jiraiya was a Sannin, which meant that is comparable to a cage-level shinobi, so dodging a sword strike is easy for him than for any other shinobi. Naruto wasn't easily discouraged as he followed with several sword swings. Well, Jiraiya had dodged it, but Naruto was able to graze his neck, resulting in blood to leak out from his neck, but it was just a shallow cut and wasn't in the least bit life-threatening. Naruto tried to once more attack again, only for Jiraiya to open the palm of his hand, creating a Rasengan, and slammed it onto Naruto's abdomen, resulting in a large shockwave to appear, sending Naruto at light speed towards the forest, resulting in a large part of the forest to be ripped out by the sheer force of the Rasengan. The Brad is really persistent. I doubt the Rasengan will be enough to wound him or even incapacitate him. If this fight continues, I might be forced to use the Sage mode, but I can't reveal that just yet. Jiraiya thought bitterly. He didn't think the time would come where he would be forced on the defensive in most of his battles. Gamabunta would have commented, but he chose to keep his eyes on the storm of debris that was caused by Jiraiya's Rasengan. He had learned that taking your eyes off Naruto for even just 1 second is dangerous. Just like the two had predicted, Naruto didn't stay down for long, as despite the severe burn in his abdomen and the blood leaking from his mouth, he was still able to stand up and smile. Tsunade, as much as she was amazed by the scale of the battle and how strong Naruto had grown in those 2 years, she realized that this battle needed to be concluded as quickly as possible. As such, she had stood up from her seat, ready to take off towards the training ground to stop the battle. Naruto had already proven himself to be already qualified for the promotion to a Jonin. Everyone in the arena already got to witness that Naruto's strength wasn't exaggerated and that he's already at the level of a Sannin, maybe even more, considering that he's able to fight against Jiraiya and the Toad boss Gamabunta. There was no reason to drag this battle any longer and risk having the two of them with severe injuries. She could already see that the Rasengan that Jiraiya had launched on Naruto's abdomen is going to leave a nasty burn which she could heal, but if the battle continues, this might become even more worse than just a burn. So you're planning to stop them? Kiyomi asked, having predicted such an outcome from the beginning, which Tsunade nodded her head at. Yes, Naruto is already qualified to be promoted to Jonin. There is no need for them to fight a battle that is leaning dangerous to a battle of death. Tsunade explained, and Kiyomi couldn't help but agree with the Hokage, even if she loves watching her boyfriend fight. Well, I will come and help. I'm sure the two of them are still holding back and are trying to keep their aces to themselves. said Kiyomi as she stood up and the two of them rushed to stop the battle, while the clan heads and Konoha 11 noticed Tsunade and Kiyomi moving and could already predict that they were planning to stop the battle. So they're going to put an end to the match, said Kurenai, surprised that the Hokage finally decided to force the battle into a draw. Well, if the two were allowed to continue any more than this, then they will accidentally destroy their surroundings and might even injure themselves, since most attacks don't work on Naruto, and the same applies for Jiraiya, who was somewhat able to adapt to Naruto fast swordsmanship. Asuma was the one to answer as he took a drag from his cigarette. As much as I enjoy watching the two of them fight, I think it's for the best that this battle be concluded already. Neji commented as the others nodded their heads agreeing with Neji's comment. Watching Naruto and Jiraiya-sama fight makes me feel more miserable than I already am, to think that Naruto, who was once the dead last of our generation, was now able to compete with a Sannin, said Ino in a slightly depressed tone, having seen the massive gap in strength between her and Naruto. Yeah, this is way too troublesome, I could already see my mom giving me a look that I don't like at all, said Shikamaru, shivering as his eyes had met with his mother's eyes, which, while she didn't say any words, her eyes were more than enough to convey a message that he didn't like at all and cursed his bad luck. It was obvious that Yoshino from her eyes alone was planning something very diabolical in the eyes of the many lazy Nara like Shikamaru and Shikaku Nara. Seeing Naruto fight a Sannin as equals had probably ignited something inside her, and she believed that if Naruto, who was once at rock bottom, could do this, then her son should be able to do better. The gleam in her eyes didn't go unnoticed by Shikaku, who over the years of being married to Yoshino had developed an extra sense which allows him to sense when his wife is plotting for something no good, and as he felt his body tremble, the first thing he did was to look at his wife, who gave him a look that confirmed his fears. That was the collective thought of both father and son duo as they trembled at the sight of their mother-wife gleaming eyes that promised pain if defied. Naruto had definitely felt the Rasengan as it drilled through his stomach. He was reminded once more of how powerful the Rasengan is, and the fact that it was incomplete made the Rasengan a very fearsome jutsu that is deserving of respect. Even if he is not a big fan of his own father, he could at least appreciate the man's intellect in creating something so dangerous. One might think that considering his track record of cutting jutsu like a tofu, that cutting the Rasengan in half would be easy for him, but that was still out of his league. The Rasengan was a concentration of chakra that is rotating in itself, which is why when it makes contact with anything it drills through it. This was something that he can't cut yet, since in most cases it might shatter his sword. His mother on the other hand can cut the Rasengan with ease, including the giant Rasengan, but that's because his mother had a track record of cutting giant fortresses with just a casual slash. He still had a long way to go, and that made him happy that he still had more to learn. His mother had always taught him that you can find something to learn even when you think you learned everything. That is why the Moonlight Sword style follows the principle that using your own techniques will make your play out as you wish. This meant that he shouldn't aim to copy his mother's technique only, but rather make his own technique as well. He could already hear the approving voice of his mother commending him for being open-minded and for having learned a lesson from the fight. That hurt, you know, I think I will repay you back tenfold for that wound on my abdomen, said Naruto with a grin which made Jiraiya shiver. Stay focused, Jiraiya said, Gamabunta being highly on guard. He never once thought that Naruto, who always made a fuss back when he was the blonde-haired kid who wore that orange attire that was way too eye-catching for a shinobi to wear, would pose such a threat even to him. That's enough, Tsunade shouted loudly as she arrived just in time to stop them from resuming the fight. Naruto and Jiraiya looked at the ground to see Tsunade and Kiyomi standing. Tsunade Haim? Why are you here? Asked Jiraiya in surprise, not thinking that Tsunade would interfere in the fight. I'm here because you two morons are going to kill each other if left to continue fighting. Naruto had already proven himself to be qualified for the promotion, we've seen enough of his abilities, said Tsunade, which Naruto let out a sigh and agreed. He didn't want to reveal any more of his hand to everyone. It was already bad enough that he was forced to reveal his Cherryok, which a lot of people will already be asking about, but at the very least he didn't use the full potential of his Cherryok in the fight and would probably be able to come up with a story to cover up its existence. His sword Bongxian on the other hand wasn't really a concern, since nobody can take it from him, since he can teleport it back to his hand from anywhere around the world. Even Sealing can't keep Bongxian away from him as long as his sword can teleport, even when they're left in another dimension, which was something his mother had told him about. That's a relief, as much as I hate to admit it. If you didn't interfere, things could have gotten worse for me, Jiraiya admitted, since he had bore witness to Naruto's quick adaptability and overpowering strength. Scared him quite a lot. He knew that Naruto can do even worse, but he was suppressing himself a little to avoid revealing his card so early on. The only way he could have gained advantage and even came out victorious was through the Sage mode. This was the only card that could have given him the victory, but he was not really confident that it would have lasted long, since Naruto would have adapted to him and beaten him. Naruto was already a cage-level shinobi, and he was still in his early 15s. If allowed to reach his prime, then he will be the strongest shinobi and swordsman in the history. Well, I will be returning to the mountain for good sake, muttered Gamabunta, being quite relieved that the fight is over, since he still had that cut on his chest that he received from Naruto before he looked at Naruto. Hey Naruto, do come to Mount Mayaboku for a drink. Something tells me that drinking with you is going to be more enjoyable than with the pervert sitting on top of my head, said Gamabunta with a grin which was matched by Naruto. I will make sure to free some time for a drink, said Naruto, accepting the offer, which made Gamabunta pleased and Jiraiya irritated by the comment. Speaking of the pervert, I will drag your ass to Mount Mayaboku for your funeral, so enjoy what little freedom you have left before I get my hands on you, said Gamabunta, which made Jiraiya pale like a sheet of paper before Gamabunta left to Mount Mayaboku, leaving Jiraiya to fall to the ground. Tsunade was chuckling in amusement seeing the fear in Jiraiya's face, and she knew that he had messed up big time. Kiyomi had giggled a little before she moved to fuss over Naruto abdomen burn, as Naruto stopped using his Cherryok, feeling somewhat drained, but not enough to want to sleep. I'm okay, it's just a burn in the abdomen that will heal quickly, said Naruto, hoping to alleviate any worries from his girlfriend Kiyomi. Tsunade had walked towards Naruto, who was the closest, and started healing the wound in his abdomen, which took 5 minutes to heal if we take into account the Kyuubi healing Naruto as well. Tsunade, I'm injured as well, said Jiraiya in a childish tone as he walked, having been cut all around his body by Naruto, and was feeling somewhat jealous of Naruto for having the attention of Tsunade, but Jiraiya had meant well and was just playing his role of a comedian. Don't worry, your injuries aren't enough to leave you bleeding to death. Besides, Naruto takes priority considering you shoved a Rasengan to his abdomen, which should leave any shinobi in a critical condition, said Tsunade, remembering the state of Kabuto when Naruto first used the Rasengan on the man. Jiraiya had understood, which is why he didn't make much fuss over the situation and watched as Tsunade finished healing Naruto before she went to heal Jiraiya, who had been quite pleased to have his Tsunade heal him as well. I'm so happy that you care for little old me, said Jiraiya in his usual flirting tone, which normally would earn him a punch from Tsunade, but the latter only smiled, realizing that she doesn't hate that side of Jiraiya. Well, we should head back. We will have an hour of break for everyone to do their own business before we resume our next battle, which should be between me and Kiyomi here, said Tsunade, as the others didn't find any reason to argue with her decision. After all, she was the Hokage. A lot of people were disappointed, given that the battle was reaching its climax, and the winner would have probably been decided if the battle were to resume, but they had to agree that it was dangerous for the battle to continue, and they were instead satisfied that they got to see such an entertaining battle that made the Chunin exam look like backstreet fighting. Phew, I'm really tired, one of the shinobi of the village commented, letting out a small sigh of relief as he stood up, having stayed grounded on his chair even when he wanted to stretch his already numb legs, but the fight was way too intense that he didn't feel the numbing until the battle was finally over. I feel you, man, let's go have a drink before the next battle starts, we have an hour to take a breather, said his friend, who was another shinobi, standing up and inviting his friend for a drink, which the first guy had found appealing. But man, this fight was legendary, makes me feel ashamed for being content with my current level of strength, commented a third shinobi who wore a Chunin vest. It was apparent that the battle had given a lot of the shinobi present in the village an idea of what true strength is. They were content with what they achieved, but Naruto had shown them strength that rivals a Sannin, and that made them quite embarrassed for being easily satisfied with their current strength. Now I'm even more glad that Naruto is still a Konoha shinobi, or we would have been screwed in more ways than one, commented the second shinobi, which his two other friends had wholeheartedly agreed to. The Konoha 11 were quite relieved that the battle was over. The battle had concluded into a draw, since nobody can determine the winner of the match, and it was better to leave it that way, since the fight had already served its purpose in giving everyone a glimpse of Naruto's strength. Temari, who had been attending, had been silent throughout the battle, having not commented since her brain had probably shut down. She was a strong kunoichi and had seen and dealt with far worse, but the scale of the battle had terrified her and left her in shock. She at first thought that the many rumors she heard about Naruto were just exaggerated tales, but she was proven to be wrong, and she knew that the two of them weren't at their peak yet and were just getting a feel of each other's strength for most of the fight. It was only at the end that they were starting to get more serious. This is leaving me with a terrible headache. I think I need a drink to calm down after this. Temari voiced her complaint that nobody could blame her because they were in a similar situation. Niji gave her a sympathetic look. Others like Kiba, Lee might not think much about the fight, aside from seeing it as a source of entertainment, and in Lee's perspective, it was a source of motivation, but for smart people like them, who likes to observe even the most stupidest and tiniest details, the fight was beyond their wildest dreams. In such a situation, they needed some sort of timeout to clear their thoughts, which is why some would need a drink to numb the headache, such as Temari, who was already standing up and was dragging an unamused Shikamaru to buy some alcoholic beverages. To think Naruto, my rival, would surpass me like this. said Kiba, mulling over his defeat as Naruto had displayed strength that not even he can match. His bold claim had earned him looks from Konoha 11. Rival. That's such a very bold claim, Kiba-san. Naruto far outclasses you even before the training trip. Shino bluntly responded to Kiba's bold speech, unknowingly shattering Kiba's pride without even feeling any ounce of sympathy. Denial isn't a good thing for one to have, Kiba-san. We must always know our limits. Niji added to Shino's comment, making Kiba crumble in front of everyone. You bastards, can't a man have his own dreams, yelled Kiba in frustration at seeing such an inconsiderate teammate and comrades, but apparently he was ignored. Wait, now that Naruto is no longer the dead last, does that mean Kiba is the dead last? Ino brought a valid question, making Kiba feel even more miserable by the second. I think Kiba-kun is strong, Hinata said meekly, making Kiba beam at seeing one of his teammates not easily betraying him. Even though he is still no match for Naruto-kun, said Hinata as just as she raised his spirits she had shattered it once more in a few seconds without even knowing it. You're more cruel than the others, Hinata thought Kiba as he sulked on the ground as the Jonin watched with a hint of amusement. That's enough, this is supposed to be a learning experience. Naruto's strength should be something you all should strive for and not put each other down, said Asuma, deciding to end this before a commotion could start. Can we even do that? Asked Choji, feeling outclassed by Naruto, especially when he saw Naruto lifting a large toad with the tip of a sword. He can never do that even if he uses his family expansion jutsu. We're not asking you to reach his level, but rather look at improving and become a better version of yourselves. In only 2 years, Naruto achieved strength that put him at the level of a Sannin. I don't see why none of you should be able to grow stronger, said Kurenai, deciding to interfere and correct them before they misunderstand them. Everyone has their own pace, don't rush because it would be unyouthful if you end up badly injuring yourself, said Guy, giving his own wisdom which made him receive many stares. Says the guy with a ridiculous training regimen. That was the collective thought of just about everybody who heard Guy's claim. The only one who seems to be on board with Guy is his copy Rock Lee. It was obvious that regardless of the current power gap between Naruto and them, they still felt motivated and determined to one day grow stronger and reach their potential, just as Naruto did. Even if they can't compete with Naruto, at the very least they can work hard to not be a burden on him. Being a burden on Naruto was the last thing any of them wanted. Naruto had proven to them that with dedication and training, you can achieve your goals, and they will do the same by training even harder than before. Naruto had quickly made it back to the arena, being clapped by those around him as they cheered from him, acknowledging the strength that he had just displayed right before their eyes. For the old Naruto, he would have obviously relished in such attention and acknowledgement and would have paraded around the arena. The current him acknowledged the praises, but he wasn't interested in what they thought about him. He was past a phase where he thought about how others felt about him, but now he doesn't care if he is perceived as the most evil person in history, as long as his mother, Kiyomi, Tsunade and a few others of his precious people remained by his side. That is all that mattered to him. His mother had once lost her memories and was brainwashed into committing a lot of mass genocide. Her now husband Dewey had spent years chasing after her in order to save her from the brainwashing, and Mori-jin, despite his emotional problem when it came to the murder of his grandfather Tijin-jin, he had also went after her to bring her back and save her, and at the end, she was ultimately saved by her husband Dewey. When his mother, Dewey and Mori were made into criminals and had people throw rocks at them. All that mattered to her at the time was her family, her now husband Dewey and her best friend Mori-jin. In a way, you don't need to have all people love you to be happy, as long as you have just one person who is willing to go through hell for you, then that's what matters. Naruto had finally understood why his mother can easily smile after everything she had gone through. She had a few people that stuck by her side till the very end, and she was happy with what she had and didn't care about others' opinion. I thought you'd be excited when hearing the cheers, asked Jiraiya, being surprised that Naruto isn't running around enjoying the attention which he would have done if he was in the brat's place. It's the feelings of those that matter to me that I only see and hear, the others are only background noises for me. I'm not looking at being another hero for Konoha, but I'm intending to fight for the village regardless, and I will fight for what I believe in, even if others are against it, because I know that those that matter to me will have my back, said Naruto with a content smile which surprised Tsunade and Jiraiya with his maturity and looked at each other before giving their own smile. When did you get so good with words? And I was seriously hoping to pass my legacy to you, said Jiraiya as he let out a sigh only to feel killing intent at the back of his head. Does passing your legacy include peeping on women and writing smut books? Not on my watch, Jiraiya. If you ever taint him with your antics I will castrate you, threatened Tsunade with a glare which made Jiraiya flinch and raise his hand in a placating manner. Jill Tsunade Haim, I would never do something so shameless, said Jiraiya, which earned him a glare from Tsunade. You speak as if writing one of the biggest smut books in the elemental nation which contain many of your victims that you had shamelessly peeped on isn't shameless. Tsunade spat in slight disgust while Jiraiya sweat-dropped, realizing that wasn't a wise thing to say. The two started bickering like a couple, or rather Tsunade was reprimanding and threatening Jiraiya, while the latter was her biggest simp trying to please Tsunade while failing terribly. Naruto and Kiyomi could only watch blankly before deciding that they had better things to do than get involved in a lover's quarrel. Chapter 16. Intermission. Naruto's fight against Jiraiya was a hot topic between the shinobi of the village, as well as the regular citizens of Konoha. Everyone had fully realized how outrageously strong Naruto is to fight against Jiraiya of the Sannin, who was rumored to be the strongest among his two fellow Sannin. Everyone had debated whether Jiraiya was holding back or not, but it can be said that Naruto had more or less fought almost the entire battle, using only his superior Kenjutsu, and at the end, he resorted to his Chariok, which made him clash against the Toad boss, a feat not many can pull off. One thing both sides could agree on, and that they're quite lucky that Naruto is still willing to stay in the village to protect it, instead of joining Kurigakure, where he is guaranteed a high-paid salary, as well as a good position in the village hierarchy, which would automatically get him recognition from the populace of Kurigakure. Naruto loyalty was now unquestionable, for the citizens of Konoha who still harbored some resentment towards the Nine Tails container had started to review their own opinion on Naruto, although some can be considered to be hard-headed and are unable to adapt to the change or accept that they were in the wrong. For the shinobi of Konoha, a lot of them had already started to view Naruto in a positive light during the finals of the Chunin exam. They were shinobi, as such they knew that the seal in Naruto's stomach was made by their beloved Yondaime Hokage, who was taught by the seal master Jiraiya, so they knew that Naruto wasn't going to be easily influenced by the Kyuubi. But Naruto had returned stronger and smarter, managing to even fight one of the legendary Sannin as equals, had made the shinobi side grow to respect him even more than before, especially when it was revealed that he turned down the Mizukage offer to join her village, despite being given a high position. In just a few minutes since the end of the battle, and mostly everyone was crowding Naruto trying to talk to him. Naruto for his part was slightly annoyed, but he hid it behind a mask of indifference. He had a good control over his own temper to not let it influence his judgment. Although, he still has the Uzumaki blood running through his veins, or rather his U-blood, so he can often lose his temper if the person in front of him is probing him for information or just plain annoying him. Still, he was not a perfect human being, and he was happy to know that, since it means he still had a lot to learn. That aside, the people surrounding him were disorganized. Each person was trying to ask him a question or try to start a conversation with him like they were some long-time friend that he didn't know about, which if you asked him, it really annoyed him, since he recognized some of them who ignored him or in some cases mocked him and bullied him. There were obviously the fangirls, some who simply watched from afar ogling him and speaking dreamily about him, while some of the bold ones were trying to get touchy with him or press their assets onto him. But Naruto wasn't that type of person who can't keep it in his pants after having a girl flash her cleavage to him. Maybe Jiraiya would, but not him. Besides, Kiyomi was way better than any of those whores, not only because Kiyomi was a rare beauty, but because Kiyomi was strong. He likes strong and independent women who aren't damsels in distress who need saving every second. Kiyomi has pride as a kunoichi, and she doesn't self-destruct by dieting like some of the women that are trying to seduce him. He felt some pity for them. If he was the same runt as before, he might have actually entertained this kind of attention. Being formerly the boastful person that he was, he probably would have sat there with a smug look and started his exaggerated tale about his great exploits in Kurigakure. Now, he is no longer the same immature child who craved attention and acknowledgement at the expense of his own reputation around the village. He didn't need them anymore, since he had his precious people like Kiyomi and other individuals. After all, if those people couldn't be there for him when he's at his lowest point in his life, then they don't deserve to be around him when he's successful. A friend who understands your tears is much more valuable than a friend who only knows your smile. This was something that his mother had once told him in the past. When she was training him, she had made sure to clear his misconception about a lot of things, that includes about the people he once called his friends. One thing people seem to misunderstand is friendship. One doesn't need to have several friends to be truly happy. Having at least one or two was more than enough. Mira had only 2 friends, with one of them ending up becoming her husband, while she was acquainted with several people like Ilpyo, Sujin Lee and other people, but they weren't among the circle of her friends. This is why you don't see him going around trying to make others happy at the expense of his own happiness, because this wasn't charity. A real friend or lover would share your pain, your happiness, sadness and anger, not the type who only knows how to receive from you, but isn't willing to give anything back. This is why he is often blunt and never once sugarcoats things, and he isn't going to apologize for it or let himself be swayed by others. This had been one of his main problems in the past. He always caved in and did things he didn't want to, because he wanted the other side to acknowledge him even if he was in the right. Naruto let out a sigh watching as the people surrounding him are trying to pry for information that they aren't entitled to know about. He knew some of them couldn't help their curiosity since he went from the dead last of the academy to a cage-level shinobi in 2 years. Still their questions felt like they were interrogating him. He wouldn't really be surprised if among the crowd are some lackeys to the counselors of Konoha, meant to gather as much information as they possibly can get about him, and since they still believed that he was the loose-lipped preteen, they were expecting to get some information about him. That aside, Naruto still considered this to be rude of them whether it was intentional or unintentional. Most of the crowd even consisted of shinobi, and it made him wonder what they think shinobi actually means. No shinobi worth their headband would reveal his hand to just anyone unless that person is someone you can trust to have your back. Still, Naruto was taught better, so he politely excused himself, managing to come up with an excuse to get out of the crowd. They were definitely upset since he never did answer any of their questions, but he honestly couldn't find it in him to give a book. Luckily, among those rude crowds were some people who understood that he was annoyed by the attention so they backed away. Naruto breathed out in relief as he walked away from the crowd. Kiyomi had stayed with Tsunade, and surprisingly, the two of them got along quite well, but he had already expected Kiyomi's personality to rub on Tsunade a little bit, given that the two are women, and unlike men who mostly solve all of their problems through a fight, women tend to have some sort of ability to understand each other without the need of excessive violence. Naruto's feminine voice came behind him as he turned around to spot Ino Yamanaka. The girl had definitely changed and despite not being a fan of comparing others, Ino was definitely much better than Sakura. Sakura is still stuck in the past, unable to move on or accept that Sasuke had severed his ties with them. He should have felt angry or disappointed, but he only felt pity for her, since he would have been unable to move on or accept that Sasuke had betrayed them, not to mention he would have still tried to pursue Sakura. That aside, Sakura's temper had worsened, and she only remained quiet because she knew that he wasn't going to take her abuse any longer, so she chose to use her brain and back away, so she doesn't antagonize him even further. Ino on the other hand has changed from the once bossy woman. She is still somewhat bossy, but she is now more outgoing, cheerful and maybe a little perverted than he had first expected from her. She also added some muscle mass which shows that she had dropped the idea of dieting and was eating more as she should be. Ino was much better than Sakura, even back then Ino despite her crush over Sasuke didn't take it as far as Sakura did. Sakura had severed her friendship with Ino because of a crush on a boy who didn't even bat her an eye. To go as far as to cut ties with a person who showed you kindness when nobody did made him lose respect for Sakura, but maybe he was being a little harsh since he remembered that they resolved their issues in the preliminaries. Ino? What is it that you want? Asked Naruto, sounding a lot more rude than he might have intended, but Ino seems to have understood how stressed he is seeing that he was just recently crowded by a lot of people. Don't be like that, Naruto-kun. You've been too distant from us, you should consider spending some time with us. Said Ino with a little bit of a pout, while Naruto let out a sigh. Ino then locked her arm with Naruto and smiled brightly, although he could see a small blush on her face. Come on, we have an hour before your girlfriend gets to fight, so you should come with me to meet the others. Said Ino with a grin as she started to pull him towards a barbecue restaurant. Do I really have to come? I mean, we aren't really friends, but rather we're comrades or acquaintances as far as our relationship goes. Said Naruto. It was a little blunt, but he wasn't keen with the idea of talking to the others. I know we haven't been the nicest people, some of us have treated you as an idiot, and some of us have outcasted you, but I hope you understand that just as you changed and became who you are today, we also changed, even if not as significant as yours. Said Ino. She was definitely sad since she along with many had grown mature over the course of 2 years and a half, so she knows that her past actions weren't the best. Back then, we were young and immature, and we still have some immaturity, even if we try to often conceal it. Sasuke's defection had affected us all. He was respected and loved inside the village, but yet he severed his ties with us for more power, but yet you, the one who was outcasted, had remained loyal to the village. Said Ino, her lips curled into a smile as she looked at Naruto. I find this admirable. You didn't owe us anything, but yet you came back even when you were offered a better place in Kurigakure. If you and Kiyomi weren't together, I would have jumped at the opportunity to take you for myself. Said Ino with a small blush on her cheeks. Naruto was definitely surprised. Ino did have a crush on Sasuke, well, not as much as Sakura did, but Ino was still one of Sasuke's top fangirls, so he was definitely surprised that she actually found him attractive in her eyes. It didn't mean that he was less confident in his looks, but rather he didn't understand how women think or how they label a man's attractiveness. You don't realize how rare it is to find such a good quality from a man, someone who's loyal and faithful. I really envy Kiyomi. Ino added once more, having once more regained her cool and started to pull Naruto towards the restaurant. She's right, I'm not the only one who has grown for the past 2 years and a half. They also did, the wound in my heart might still be fresh, but I'm willing to give them a chance to show me how much they have changed. Thought Naruto with a small smile. Even though he never held any grudges, it was hypocritical of him. He said that Sakura was unable to move on from Sasuke, but maybe he was the one unable to move on from the way he was treated in the past and was creating a distance between him and Konoha 11, maybe out of fear that they will continue to use him. Mira smiled from inside Naruto. When someone hurts you, it's not easy to move on from them. Nobody likes being used, so she understood his fear of being taken advantage of by others again. Naruto needed time to heal from 12-13 years of abuse and neglect from the villagers. Those things just don't heal in a day. Her husband Dewey had chased after her for decades, being unable to move on from her or abandon her. She was also unable to move on from some of the atrocities that she committed when she was brainwashed, but she learned to deal with it and overcome it. Jin Mori hated Mujin Park for killing his own grandpa and wanted revenge, but in the end, Mori ended up overcoming his hatred and some of his weaknesses, such as fighting alone and not relying on others' help. Even Mujin Park himself, who caused them a lot of trouble in the past, couldn't overcome his hatred against the gods using humans, leading him to become a human supremacist who wanted to eliminate the gods and monsters. It was his inability to overcome his past that led to his downfall, as he became like the gods that he hated and almost caused the destruction of the earth. This was just another trial for Naruto to overcome. He needed to overcome his anxiety and fears of his past. Naruto fears the idea of being used by others around him, since so far he had been the one initiating help without expecting anything in return, but sometimes Naruto wishes someone would also notice his pain and help him in some way. He had saved Sakura countless of times only for her to revert to her fangirl mode whenever she's in close vicinity to Sasuke, which would result in him being treated as an idiot or in most cases ignored, with all his achievements forgotten, and thus he's back to being the dead last of the academy who didn't just fight against an enemy that even Sasuke couldn't defeat. Even adults like Jiraiya and Kakashi didn't notice, with the former not noticing that Naruto wanted to spend time with him, but Jiraiya was more focused on his pleasure, which ended in his hard work money being taken from him and used in brothel, which is one of the reasons why Naruto was quite distant from Jiraiya. Naruto also fears the idea of being weak and helpless to defend those that matter to him, a feeling that Mira knew very well since she spent decades trying to get stronger and even tried to gain the supreme god power to no longer feel weak and protect those under her. You were really amazing out there. Tenten was the one to speak as she looked at Naruto with amazement. She had seen Bongxian, and she had resisted the urge to ask him to see it since she was warned beforehand. They wanted to talk to Naruto without making him uncomfortable. If they were to start asking questions about his ability, then it would be like telling him that they only are starting to take interest in him due to his powers, which is not what a good friend does. Thanks. Naruto replied awkwardly. He didn't get the privilege of being part of such a gathering back when he was a fresh genin. It was mostly each team sticking with each other, and whenever they gathered together was because of a problem. I have to admit that it's not bad of you, my rival, but I assure you that I will surpass you. Kiba spoke with his eyes closed, with his thumb resting on his chin while giving a toothy grin, trying his best to look cool. Naruto looked at him blankly, wondering what the idiot was blabbering about. It wasn't him alone, the rest turned to look at him as well, but Kiba was in his own little world to even notice. Naruto then looked at the meat and started to sniff the food, earning him a stare from everyone. "Why are you smelling the barbecue, Naruto?" asked Kiba, but he wasn't prepared for Naruto's answer, nor were the others prepared. I was wondering if there is anything funny in this meat, given that you're spouting some bullshit not even 5 minutes after eating those barbecues, so I was checking if our food is drugged," said Naruto bluntly, resulting in Konoha 11 to burst out in laughter. Even Akamaru was laughing at his owner. Kiba was definitely embarrassed since his face was red. Whether it was out of anger or embarrassment, nobody really minded him that much. "Not cool, man," said Kiba with a frown as he let out a huff, while Naruto wasn't bothered that much by Kiba anger or embarrassment. That's what he gets for spouting something so ridiculous. "My bad, I didn't know you were one for jokes, so I assumed that you were either drugged or were trying to get me to laugh," Naruto added. Kiba was being dissed hard as he was treated as a clown, while the others chuckled a little. "That aside, if you want to reach my level, then sitting on your ass every day won't get you anywhere, Kiba. I trained every day for hours until I fainted and my muscles were sore, so unless you can casually destroy a mountain, then you're nowhere near my level," Naruto added even more calmly while the others listened. "All of you are capable of getting stronger if you actually try to expand your arsenal and not become a one-trick pony." The Yondaime Hokage was an orphan, but it improved on the flying Raijin and became the yellow flash of the leaf. He also created his own jutsu," said Naruto while the others took his words to heart. "Just find something you're good at and master it, and if you're dedicated enough, improve on it. Use your creativity and don't limit yourself just because of a clan tradition, because those who can't adapt to changes don't survive for long, and if they did, they don't get far in the shinobi world, so don't be stubborn to think that your current skills are enough," said Naruto bluntly, making them quiet. Everyone knew that Naruto's words were true. For people like Neji and Hinata, they were practically forbidden from even altering the Hyuga gentle fist, as it will go against the tradition of the clan, and the elders will be pulling their hair in anger. Even using weapons like swords is an insult to the Hyuga clan, because the clan pride itself in their superior jutsu. Well, you're certainly right, our enemy could easily adapt to our strategy if we don't improve from our side, since it will make us more predictable, and it's unlikely to surprise the enemy. Said Shikamaru, being part of a clan of lazy geniuses, he understood the meaning behind Naruto's words. Papa always said that I should master the clan technique as well as improve on it, because eventually the enemy will come up with a way to deal with our techniques. Said Ino, finally realizing what her father was thinking from his part. That certainly is logical. Shino replied, giving a brief answer showing his support towards Naruto's speech. How truly youthful, I Rock Lee will take my training to the next level in order to become a great master jutsu user that surpassed Gai Sensei, as well as you my eternal rival. Lee said, obviously declaring Naruto as his eternal rival. Sure. Good luck, said Naruto calmly, which made Lee smile happily while Kiba became annoyed. What? Why did you tell him good luck and not me? Asked Kiba. He was embarrassed by Naruto when he declared him his rival, but the quirky Lee was told good luck. No offense, but Lee is stronger than you, Kiba. Lee also has the 8 inner gates, which is an annoying technique to deal with, so he's most likely the one who will give me a headache in the future. Said Naruto bluntly, making Lee beam happily while Kiba sank on his seat, probably depressed. Naruto-kun, how youthful of you. Said Lee, trying to throw himself at Naruto in order to hug the former blonde, only for Naruto to grab onto his face, almost crushing it in his iron grip. Don't be a weirdo, I only said that because among Konoha 11, you have the potential to be at the level of Guy, who closely rivals Kakashi. You even have the potential to surpass Guy since you're following in his footsteps. Said Naruto, while the others except Kiba had wholeheartedly agreed to Naruto's words. Naruto then tossed Lee away, whose body slammed into Kiba, planting him hard on the ground. Naruto wasn't threatened by Lee, but he knows of Lee's potential since the guy trained every single day, so he was expecting a good fight in the future if they were to ever clash, but Lee at his current level is not a threat to him, even with his 8 inner gates. Naruto, do you think Kiyomi can stand a chance against Tsunade-sama? Asked Sakura. It was obviously one thing if it was Naruto given his reputation in Kurigakure, but Kiyomi was only trained by Naruto, who admitted that he isn't a ninjutsu expert. Naruto looked at Sakura, who had a hopeful look that she could have a decent conversation with Naruto. Yes, I know that Kiyomi can fight her to a standstill, unless the old hag decides to use the strength of 100 seal jutsu, which would definitely put Kiyomi at a disadvantage. Said Naruto, giving his honest thoughts while some sweat dropped at the old hag part. She must be quite strong, fighting a Sannin is still a huge feat in itself. Neji added with a calm expression. Well, that's my own assessment, Kiyomi still has a lot of trump cards that she will reveal at one point, but Tsunade is still far more experienced and physically stronger. Said Naruto, as the others understood that Naruto is also somewhat in the dark and can't fully predict the outcome of the battle. Sakura and Hinata felt somewhat relieved for their own reasons. Sakura was relieved that Kiyomi wasn't as ridiculously strong as Naruto, because it would have made her quite insecure about herself, especially after Tsunade herself had taken an interest in Kiyomi, and she knew that one way or another, Kiyomi will probably be her student as well. Hinata felt relieved because ever since Kiyomi was first introduced, Hinata had been quite jealous of her. Being told that Naruto actually likes strong women had shattered her self-confidence into many pieces. She had expected that Kiyomi would be this unstoppable force of nature like Naruto. Now that she learned that Kiyomi isn't as strong as Naruto, made her relieved. She knows that she doesn't stand a chance against Kiyomi after all. Fighting a Sannin is still something not many shinobi can do, especially her. All Tsunade would need is a good punch and she'd probably be unconscious, but Kiyomi could probably put up a decent fight, maybe even push Tsunade to fight harder, but that was still better than having her overwhelm a cage-level shinobi, like how Naruto almost defeated Jiraiya hadn't the match been stopped. There is no need to come up with speculation, the fight should probably give us a good insight of Kiyomi-sen's strength. Said Shino, adjusting his black glasses on his face. I'm actually cheering for her. Gosh, I didn't know that Sasuke-kun had such an outgoing and cheerful sister. Said Ino with a smile. Despite how things started between them, she knew that Kiyomi was a good person. I agree, I expected her to be a self-absorbed and arrogant person, but she seems to be nice. Sasuke never really talked that much, and if he talked it would probably be taunts coming from his mouth. Tenten added her own words with a smile. Kiyomi doesn't like her clan ego, due to past circumstances she's not really fond of her clan, and I can't blame her after what she went through. Naruto said, making them surprised by his words. Everyone smiled, even though Naruto wasn't talking as much as they had hoped, but they successfully managed to get him to acknowledge them, which is enough to make them happy that they managed to get through to him. All of them were determined to help Naruto just like he had helped them in the past. They were now grown adults, and as such they're mature. Chapter 17. Part 1. Kiyomi vs Tsunade. The 1-hour intermission had ended rather quickly. Everyone had quickly found themselves back in their respective seats in the stadium, ready to see the final battle for the day, which would determine if Kiyomi is eligible to be promoted as well or not, although everyone knew that she was at least going to be promoted to Chunin or Jounin if she managed to impress the audience and the Hokage herself. Naruto had surprisingly enjoyed the gathering with the Konoha 11, even if it was tense given his change of demeanor. Still, he was the first to leave the restaurant despite the others wanting to walk together to the stadium, but he wasn't yet comfortable around them, even if he did open up to some degree. Naruto simply wasn't used to the idea of having the people who once never thought much about him to actually show interest in him. He used to be treated as the short kid who happened to be the dead last of the academy and a reputation of being a troublemaker, as well as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. His intelligence was also something that was used to describe how simply idiotic he is, which while it was true, it simply hurt his feelings. Now he became smarter and stronger than before. His conversation didn't involve his ridiculous love over Sakura or his obsession over Raymond or his constant declaration of wanting to become Hokage. He had improved and as such it was expected that they take interest in him because he was now somewhat normal, capable of holding an intelligent conversation without looking like a complete idiot. Konoha 11 might not have all been mean to him, with the exception of Sakura and Ino, who were at the fangirl phase, although Ino did move on from that phase from what he can tell, but Sakura is still obsessed over Sasuke, and he wasn't going to be surprised if she decided to chase after him. Most of Konoha 11 aside from the two aforementioned girls had either treated him nicely, such as Shikamaru, Choji. There were those who were nice to him but didn't talk to him or couldn't talk to him, such as Shino who obviously didn't talk that much, Tenten who was older than him by a year so they didn't often meet, and Hinata who was too shy to properly hold a conversation. Then there were those who dismissed him, such as Niji at the beginning before the final of the Chunin exam, Lee who at the beginning also dismissed him and focused on Sasuke, although he later changed and became nice to him. Lastly, Kiba who was nice but at the same time was too brash and hockey, so he obviously dismissed him to some degree or didn't take him seriously. Naruto let out a sigh, he still couldn't warm up to them so easily after what he went through in this village. He used to beg for attention in the past, doing all sorts of stunts that didn't help his reputation around the village, but now he found the attention on him annoying. He could slightly sympathize with Sasuke who had to deal with this on a daily basis. Naruto abruptly stopped, having finally arrived at his destination, as he saw Tsunade and Kiyomi chatting with each other on random topics. Naruto was glad that the two were getting along before the match, and he was sure they would be getting along even more after the match. "So brat, did you enjoy your reunion with your generation?" Tsunade asked, having noticed Naruto's presence. "I wouldn't exactly call it a reunion, given that we already had our reunion when they came to retrieve me," said Naruto bluntly while Tsunade shakes her head at Naruto's new personality. "That's not what I meant, I'm sure one of them dragged you to hang out, given that you're distant and all," said Tsunade, knowing that Konoha 11 did really care for Naruto, even if the latter didn't really see it. "I can't exactly say it was terrible, but I need to simply get used to people being actually interested in knowing me better for once. I guess I'm just confused and irritated that it took me doing something drastic like fighting a Sannin as an equal for them to finally notice me," said Naruto while Tsunade frowned a little, understanding where Naruto was coming from. "You have to admit, kid, you weren't exactly the brightest person around at the time. Aside from the glow up that you received, you also grew up to be more mature, unlike before where you threw tantrums at almost everything," said Tsunade bluntly, remembering how childish Naruto was at the time. Naruto had to admit that Tsunade's words hold truth. He would be arrogant and a hypocrite if he tried to pin the blame on everyone for his circumstances. The village could have done better, but he also could have done better. "You don't need to blame him, Naruto-kun simply has no one who is willing to spend more than half a day to help him. I'm just glad that Mira-san was there to undo the damage," Kiyomi commented. She didn't want Tsunade to only criticize Naruto's past behavior. Naruto didn't have anyone who is willing or capable of spending more time to teach him the right from the wrong. Even the Ichiraku family, a kind-hearted family, are busy working to support themselves every day. Hiruzen was the leader of the village, so he can't be there for Naruto all the time. Iruka also did his best, but he also had a life that doesn't revolve around Naruto. His generation, Konoha 11, were also immature at the time and followed the rumors, which is why some of them had distanced themselves from Naruto, and it didn't help that Naruto's personality had enforced their belief that Naruto was a troublemaker and a problem child. "I'm not blaming him, it's been almost 3 years and Naruto changed from a kid who wore bright orange clothes, who shouted about becoming a Hokage, to a man who looked far more mature than before. This is how others see it, it's natural they'd get curious and interested to see how much he had changed," said Tsunade, which Kiyomi and Naruto understood. "Tsunade-hime, I think it's time." Jiraiya decided to interrupt the conversation, seeing the crowd slowly getting impatient. Tsunade understood as she stood up along with Kiyomi ready to depart from the arena. "Jiraiya, I will leave the rest to you," said Tsunade seriously, which Jiraiya nodded his head silently at. After that, Tsunade and Kiyomi left the arena and towards the training ground where they will be duking it out. Naruto took to sitting down on his girlfriend's seat while Jiraiya silently did the same, but on Tsunade's seat. They were waiting for the two women to reach the training ground so that they could properly announce the start of the match. "So it's Lady Tsunade against Sasuke's twin sister, it makes me wonder if she's as strong as Naruto," said Shikaku Nara as he sat along with the clan heads. "Naturally, as one who carries the Uchiha clan blood in her veins, her strength should be quite high," said Shibi Aburam, which definitely ticked Hiashi off. "That's still something to see." Hiashi retorted as naturally the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan have never met eye to eye. He wasn't going to cheer for her just because she comes from a dead clan that used to be the strongest. She will have to prove herself in order to get rid of the shame and disgrace that both her siblings had brought onto the village. The ass-kissing that was once given to the ungrateful bastard that was her twin brother won't be given to her as well. She will have to earn his and the others' trust because they've been betrayed too much by Uchihas. "I'm at least glad that the girl doesn't seem to have the Uchiha clan ego. She seems to be stronger and a decent person to have a conversation with from what my daughter told me," said Inoichi with a small smile on his face. Inoichi did trust his daughter's judgment, and while Ino did start on the wrong foot with Kiyomi in the Mizukage office, but in the few times that she talked with the Uchiha girl, Ino had simply became friends with Kiyomi. After all, Kiyomi was far more easygoing and didn't push others away like how Sasuke did when he treated everybody as a stepping stone. "I think that regardless of how this match ends, this is going to be a very good one. I just hope the kids are watching and learning from her and Naruto so that one day they can take our place when we decide to retire or if we were to die." Choza gave his honest reply. "I couldn't agree more, Choza Dono." Shibi commented, giving a nod of appreciation to the Akimichi clan head for his foresight. "That'd be great, I won't have to do this troublesome job anymore and I can spend the rest of my life playing shogi," said Shikaku with a smile, imagining part of his dream being fulfilled as his son suffers in his place. "I just hope Hinata can learn from this and step up her training," Hiashi said as his eyes focused on Hinata, who was meekly watching the screen that was displaying the training ground that both Kiyomi and Tsunade would be duking out on. The other clan heads never really liked Hiashi's treatment of his daughter, but they simply can't do anything since it was a Hyuga clan matter that they aren't allowed to stick their noses in. Not even the Hokage has the power to really do anything about it unless the clan is going against the village best interest. The worst that could happen is the Hyuga clan retaliating by leaving the village all completely, which would mean that the village would lose another powerful clan, which would also cripple their military strength. Although, it was highly doubtful that the Hyuga clan will ever leave the village because that would leave them open to attack or even kidnapping from other hidden villages, such as Kumo, who wants the Byakugan and had a record of kidnapping peoples from other hidden villages, such as Kushina and Hinata. Tsunade had landed on the grassy terrain of the training ground. This one was the same as the one that both Jiraiya and Naruto had fought in. She wasn't keen on destroying another training ground, so why not destroy this one which was already showing signs of falling apart. Kiyomi landed opposite to Tsunade, already getting in the proper fighting stance, which seemed to earn her a nod from Tsunade. An enemy won't wait for a signal to start, but for now this was a test as well as a show for the people of Konoha who came to watch today. There was no buzzer or a head start for the battle, which is why Tsunade didn't hesitate to initiate the attack. Faster than most shinobi could react, Tsunade was already a Kiyomi, her legs raised in an axe kick as she came flying down on Kiyomi, but the Uchiha girl had been trained to fight against Naruto, who was way too fast, even with her Sharingan activated. Kiyomi jumped back as Tsunade's heel connected to the floor, causing it to crack before an entire part of the training ground fell under pressure and created a decent-sized crater, which the Senju princess stood in the middle of it unfazed. Kiyomi's hand quickly reached her pouch as she threw with dead accuracy barrages of shuriken which Tsunade had started to dodge with ease, but that was part of Kiyomi's plans because the Uchiha princess was already in front of the Senju princess, delivering a high kick to Tsunade's chin, which sent her flying a few feet away. "Not bad," Tsunade grinned as she knew that her chin was already bruised from the kick, but she didn't dare take her eyes off Kiyomi. It's a common rookie mistake for shinobi to drop their guard down in any shape that be when landing a hit on your opponents or when you try to check your injury in the middle of a fight. "Thanks for the compliment," said Kiyomi with a smile as they stared at each other for a few seconds before they met once more in the middle, their fists connected with each other. Normally, that'd be reckless of Kiyomi to engage in a fist fight with Tsunade, who was known for her legendary monster strength, but Naruto was far too dangerous than the old hag, so she didn't struggle as much as one might think. "You're quite brave to face me off in a fist fight," said Tsunade as she delivered a powerful knee to Kiyomi, who reacted quickly as she could by bringing both her palm to block the knee, but that strength behind it was enough to stand her a few feet off the ground. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Kiyomi breathed a large ball of flames towards Tsunade, having already made the hand signs when she received the knee from the Senju princess. Tsunade let out a huff as she reared her fist back before delivering a punch to the air, causing the shockwave from her punch to disperse the C-rank jutsu, but just like she expected, Kiyomi tried the same tactic of hiding behind her attack to get Tsunade off guard. "You naive," shouted Tsunade as she punched Kiyomi hard, but to her surprise, Kiyomi exploded in smoke, making her realize that it was a shadow clone as she felt a kick to the side, resulting in her to crash hard in several trees. "Who's the naive one here? I'm not that simple as to make an obvious attack more than twice," said Kiyomi as she watched Tsunade spit blood on the ground and smirk. "Should have expected that with you hanging around the brat, you were bound to take after him. You must have a large reserve of chakra if you're able to summon one without looking at least tired," said Tsunade as Naruto was simply an anomaly, being an Uzumaki as well as a Jinchuriki, his chakra reserves were simply too much. "I will take that as a compliment. Now I think we should start upping our game, wouldn't you agree?" said Kiyomi, which earned her a smirk from Tsunade, who couldn't agree more. "I was just about to say we skip the warm-up. I already know you can take a hit, let's see how long you can last against me," said Tsunade as the two smirked and disappeared in speed and started to clash fists with each other, causing tremors and for craters to form around. "Wow, she's really amazing," Ino commented with a bright smile on her face as she watched the exchange of fists between the two princesses. Despite starting on the wrong foot with Kiyomi, the two of them did manage to get along during their journey back to Konoha. "Ow, that should hurt having to clash with Hokage-sama in a fist fight," said Tenten, having idolized Tsunade long enough to know about her monster strength that was known to be used on perverts like Jiraiya and her victims of her anger. "Great, she's also a monster as well. How troublesome." Shikamaru had obviously started complaining, which earned him a glare from Temari and Ino. "Shut up, can't you just enjoy a fight without complaining every time?" Temari said with annoyance in her voice, which made Shikamaru stop. He didn't want to deal with a troublesome sand ninja anymore than he already has too. "She's so youthful, fighting against Hokage-sama on equal ground is truly a testament to her youthfulness. I'd like to fight her as well," said Lee with excitement in his eyes. "I guess this kind of performance is just expected of the Uchiha princess, her taijutsu is truly top-notch. I guess this much is also expected from Naruto's partner." Neji complimented, having been humbled in the past by Naruto. Hinata seemed to gain a gloomy air around her at the mention of the partner part, even though she knew that Neji was trying to word it differently for her own sake, but that didn't change that Kiyomi was already taking the position that she had always wanted. "She's really strong." Is that what he meant when he said that he likes strong women? "I can never fight Tsunade-sama, much less my little sister," thought Hinata bitterly. Despite becoming strong according to her teammates, her sensei and Neji, she was still quite weak. Hinata wasn't the only one who seemed to be depressed from just watching the fight. Sakura was looking at the fight with shame as she looked at her sandals before her eyes darted to her current figure. She had definitely filled up, unlike before when she looked like a gust of wind could knock her out. Still, she realized the difference between her and Kiyomi. She can never fight Tsunade on equal grounds without having her knuckles, maybe even her own entire arm, being blown off. Remembering the bell test incident, she realized that Kiyomi might end up replacing her and she'd end up like Shizune. Shizune was Tsunade's first student, but the Goddamn Hokage assistant was probably never interested in Tsunade brutish fighting style and was more of a long-ranged fighter while using poison and other tactics to get the upper hand against her opponents. Sakura didn't have anything special other than a good chakra control, but it's not like there aren't many people who already have a good chakra control. So far, people only see her as the next Tsunade 2.0, with some even saying that she's only going to be a cheap imitation copy of Tsunade. Tsunade comes from a royal clan, which is the Senju clan. She was just a commoner, only coming from a family that are doing well financially. Kiyomi also comes from a royal clan, which is the Uchiha clan that had been one of the founders of the Leaf Village. Looking at it from this angle, both Tsunade and Kiyomi are princesses in the village standard, while she was nothing more than a commoner who lucked out by getting her to take her as her apprentice because her two other teammates were being trained by one of the legendary Sannin. Sakura didn't want to look at it this way, but she knew that Tsunade must have pitied her. If Kiyomi was around from the very beginning, she probably would have dropped being a shinobi all completely. Sasuke wouldn't have deserted the village if Kiyomi was around. Everything would have been well, she had been the one who continuously screwed up with the team dynamic. Naruto and Sasuke always fought while she stood behind cowering in fear, and once things went downhill, she'd beg for someone to save her, that'd be her teammates or the Konoha 11 like back in the Forest of Death. She once used to say that Naruto was the one holding them back, but she was the one who was holding the team back. I'm really pathetic, thought Sakura as she had once openly bragged that she'd easily catch up to both her teammates. She couldn't possibly rub shoulders with either Naruto, Sasuke or Kiyomi in the matter. She was way out of her league. The entire training ground was riddled with craters that were the result of the monster strength of Tsunade and Kiyomi. Despite Tsunade being one of the famed Sannin, she was past her prime at this point, and having not fought for who knows how long, it was already taking a toll on her body. Kiyomi was faring much better, one can even say that this was a warm-up for her, even though they agreed to take this seriously. Tsunade launched herself once more towards Kiyomi, who already had her Sharingan activated, as she tried to palm strike her with her super strength, but the next thing that had happened took her off guard. Kiyomi took the blow as the moment the shockwave hit her, all she needed to do was to bounce it back. It was a technique that was taught to her by Miiryu, who had a devious look on her face and told her that she will know later why she was teaching her all of this. This technique was called wave rebound, as she raised one leg before slamming it once more to the ground, resulting in the shockwave from Tsunade's strike to bounce back towards her, sending her flying in the air while coughing blood. Kiyomi didn't end it there, she decided to shorten the distance between her and the Hokage by using hyperspeed, causing her to appear in front of the Hokage, who wasn't fast enough to react. This wasn't the end for Kiyomi's assault on the Hokage, as she followed with Bektu, which was a knee attack directed to the Godame's stomach that sent Tsunade flying at a blinding speed back to the ground, causing the area they were fighting on to be leveled. To the spectators, it looked like Kiyomi had flipped the table completely over Tsunade, who wasn't used to that kind of speed, or rather she hadn't even fought for years ever since she left the village all those years ago. Tsunade pride definitely took a major blow. Tsunade still stood up, it was a clear testament to her title as the Sannin, as well as the Godame Hokage of the Leaf Village, even despite not fighting for years so far. Despite her pain, she powered through it and stood up on both her feet, that if you don't look closely, you'd think that the barrages of attacks hadn't done much damage to her. "You're good, I never thought I'd have that much workout fighting someone who is still at the start of her prime." Tsunade genuinely complimented Kiyomi, who became bashful at receiving praise. "It's nothing if I compare myself to Naruto-kun and Mira-san. Still, I'm quite determined to become strong enough to fight by his side in all of our future battles," said Kiyomi, both in a humble tone as well as determination. Tsunade seemed to smile even more at her words. This is why she had viewed Kiyomi as a potential student. It didn't mean that she was heartless enough to discard Sakura, because the pink-haired teen still had potential, even though she refuses to acknowledge it due to setting the bar way too high. Comparing yourself to others can result in two things. There are those who will use this as a source of motivation to grow even stronger like Rock Lee, and there are those that will get depressed over it and start sulking around about the unfairness of the world like Sakura does. Sakura should be proud of herself, she didn't have any bloodline, nor does she come from a powerful clan, but was still able to learn a lot from her. If Sakura stopped busying herself with what others think of her, or rather waste 99% of her thoughts on her fantasy over Sasuke while continuously comparing herself to others, she might see how strong she had actually become. Tsunade did pity Sakura for being the weakest link in her team, but that wasn't actually the reason for taking her as an apprentice. She took her because she saw herself to some degree in Sakura. If Sakura didn't actually have talent or even potential, she'd have kicked her out and told her to start thinking of a career change. She had seen many delusional kunoichi become shinobi for a crush over a boy, and they all ended up dying on the battlefield, and the worst case is being gaped, which is every kunoichi and women nightmare. Tsunade would rather be heartless than to give Sakura hope that she can become anything in the shinobi world. Kiyomi, on the other hand, understands that she's weaker than Naruto, but that wasn't enough to discourage her. Instead, she wanted to gain strength for a noble reason, which is to fight by Naruto's side. She wasn't thinking about the gap of strength between her and the others around her. "That's a good motivation you have there. Now then, it's time to take this up a notch," said Tsunade as she bit her finger ready to use her summoning jutsu. Only time can tell if Kitsaya will be enough to deal with Kiyomi or not. Chapter 18. Part 2. Kiyomi vs Tsunade. Summoning jutsu, declared Tsunade as she slammed her palm to the ground, resulting in a seal to appear on the ground before a puff of smoke covered the broken training ground. Kiyomi was patient as she watched as the smoke was dispersed, revealing an enormous entity whose true size is still to this day unknown. The general size of the summoned portion of Kitsayu is easily as tall as the largest building in Konoha. It is predominantly white in color with 3 blue streaks that run vertically down the middle and side of its body from its head and tapering off at its tail. Its optical tentacles have a slight tint of gray to them, and it also has 2 sensory tentacles on either side of its mouth. "How can I help you, my lady?" asked Kitsayu as she looked at her own summoner who stood at her head. "I'm testing this one down here, and so far she's been doing quite well against me. I want to see how well she does with both of us together," said Tsunade as Kitsayu's attention shifted to the Uchiha princess. "Very well then," said Kitsayu with reluctance, since the Uchiha princess was quite young in her eyes and she found this to be overkill unless the girl down there had a summoning contract. Now then Kiyomi, this battle won't be as easy, so if you have any summoning or trump card, you have a minute to do it, said Tsunade, while Kiyomi shook her own head. You asked for it, said Kiyomi as she stretched her hand forward as a bright glow appeared in her hand, making many curious except for Naruto who knew what she was doing. The black box was materialized in her hand, making Tsunade arch her eyebrow, while Kitsuyu became even warier seeing the box, having sensed the aura that was coming from it. Pushing open the box, a black-like substance started to cover Kiyomi's whole body before it died down, revealing a full body armor, with her eyes glowing a red color. You will regret giving me this time to put the armor on, said Kiyomi, as she vanished from Tsunade's line of sight before suddenly, and out of nowhere, Kitsuyu got kicked into a mountain hard. Arg, screamed Kitsuyu in shock at the pain that she had felt throughout her body, even though it shouldn't be possible to harm her. Tsunade on the other hand had managed to hold down from falling from atop Kitsuyu, as she was still sticking on her summon back with her chakra control, but the kick did cause her to get slightly disoriented. Kitsuyu started to spit her acid from her mouth towards Kiyomi, who was rushing towards them at great speed that could only be rivaled, if not had already been surpassed by Naruto himself. My lady, we need to take caution, whatever armor she has equipped on herself is giving her a boost in all her stats, and who knows what kind of ability it also grants her, warned Kitsuyu, as she continued to spew acid in hopes to slow down Kiyomi. This is bad, so the brat isn't the only one who has some kind of weird Kekkei Genkai. Muttered Tsunade to herself as even she didn't expect such a boost in power. Kiyomi had ignored the acid coming to her, as an almost invisible barrier was formed around her protecting Kiyomi from the acid that left many of the trees and even boulders melting. Reflection, said Kiyomi, causing the acid that was being shot at her to be redirected and sent back towards Kitsuyu and Tsunade, much to their shock, as the acid impacted Kitsuyu who had shielded Tsunade with her own body. Arg, screamed Kitsuyu, feeling the burning sensation of her own acid touching her. Kiyomi jumped atop her head as she delivered an axe kick. Tsunade quickly reacted by placing her arm in X shape, but that didn't change anything, as she felt her bone creak, almost breaking before being sent flying back to the earth with force, causing a large crater to be formed. Hyperspeed, said Kiyomi as she broke the distance between her and Tsunade in a second, ready to deliver a roundhouse kick, only for Kiyomi to be uppercutted out of nowhere and sent through a mountain in the distance. A shadow clone, huh? Asked Kiyomi, surprised as she shook her head from the effect of the punch that left her a little bit dizzy. I never thought shadow clones could be this useful. I could see why the brat likes it, said Tsunade mostly to herself as she tried to recover with Kitsuyu assisting her in healing. My lady, she is coming right now, Kitsuyu warned, obviously concerned for her summoner and also concerned at the kind of power that a girl her age possessed. DCH, I expected that this wouldn't be enough to take her down, but this should buy me time to recover. I'm seriously losing my touch, said Tsunade, feeling like she could have fared much better if she was in her prime days. Tsunade may not have the same hate for the Uchiha clan as her grand uncle Tobirama, but she wouldn't allow an Uchiha to overpower her easily at that. She still had her pride as a Senju, her blood was demanding her to show this young girl why the Senju was the strongest. The Uchiha clan are already powerful with their Dijutsu, but now you tell me she has another Kekkei Genkai or some kind of hacks ability, complained Ino, since this was very broken. This is getting way troublesome, said Shikamaru, rubbing his head at the headache that was coming to him. This is just ridiculous. Everything is troublesome for you. Still, the Uchiha chick is truly living up to her last name, praised Temari, although she would be lying if she said that she wasn't jealous. She worked hard for her strength and she took pride in it, but the Uchiha sure made it look easy, even though she didn't doubt that Kiyomi had worked just as hard as her, if not even harder, to get that kind of strength, but Temari felt like Naruto had a hand in making her op. Please remind me not to mess with her. I'm very fond of living, said Kiba, with his Ninkanakamaru whimpering in fear at seeing the devastation caused by the Uchiha princess. You can start by trying not to impress her or flirt with her every chance you get, especially when in front of Naruto, Shino pointed out to his teammate. Kiba never tried to flirt with her or impress her in the slightest, knowing that she was already taken by Naruto, but he knew what Shino had meant, even if Kiba was trying to deny it. Kiba had a bad habit of trying to act cooler in front of beautiful women by trying to flirt with them and impress them. After all, Kiba does believe that he was an alpha male, that he got the trizz to make women wet, even though he was failing miserably at that. This is intense, muttered Choji as he munched on his chips, being obviously on edge in his seat, while a few gave him the stink eyes, which consisted of mostly women, due to the way he ate. Lady Hokage is now forced into a corner. I wonder if she has anything left to show to even the playing field between her and Kiyomi-san, said Niji, while Tenten frowned. I'm sure she has some trump card. Lady Tsunade has never fought in a long time, so it's understandable that she is getting a little overwhelmed, Tenten explained, if merely to defend her idol. Tenten regarded Tsunade as an idol that she had aimed to become like, even though she didn't have the capacity to do medical ninjutsu like Sakura, but she can excel in another field, which is fuinjutsu, which, while mediocre, was good enough in her books and her variety of weapons. Tenten glanced at Sakura, who was sulking even more and frowned even more. She likes and respects Sakura to a degree, but she hated seeing this expression on Sakura's face, not because she felt bad for her but for another reason. You don't know how lucky you are to be picked by Lady Tsunade as her apprentice, thought Tenten bitterly, as she wanted to have such honor, but she simply can't get everything in life. Tenten understands that Sakura wants to stand by her teammate's side, but this is wrong. Sakura was a normal civilian with no special ability or trait like Naruto, Sasuke and Kiyomi, who are born with abnormal abilities or Kekkei Genkai or Taijutsu. Sakura is strong and can be considered as one of the top 5 strongest in their generation, if we include Naruto, Kiyomi and Sasuke. Tenten wishes to have this kind of strength and make a name for herself in the elemental nation. How youthful, I have to ask her for a spar to test the limits of my youth, shouted Lee excitedly, with fire brimming in his eyes in excitement for his duel that he would like to have with the Uchiha princess. After all, he had fought Sasuke, and despite winning quite easily at that in their first time, but Sasuke had shown adaptability as well as amazing growth, being able to clear the gap between them very quickly, before possibly surpassing him by the final Chunin exam. Live it up, Lee, at your current level, she will wipe the floor clean with you, said Shikamaru, knowing that Lee wouldn't stand a chance if what they're seeing is the full extent of Kiyomi's power. Don't try changing his mind. Once that dolt has set his mind on something, he won't budge until he gets it, said Neji, rubbing his forehead in slight annoyance. Neji may have once looked down on Lee, but now he had respect for his own teammate for achieving this level of strength with hard work alone. Still, the gap between them and Naruto along with Kiyomi is too big. Just from watching both matches, both Naruto and Kiyomi are much faster, stronger. Anyone who can cut mountains and even powerful summons like that of the Toad boss or send a summon flying with a punch is worthy of a lot of respect. This wasn't a situation like his fight with Naruto back in the Chunin exam, where Naruto managed to win despite him being superior to him in every sense. The reason why Naruto had won against him in the finals of the Chunin exam is because, aside from the fact that he gotten quite arrogant in believing that the dead last had no chance in winning against him, but because Naruto had the red chakra that helped close the gap in strength rather quickly, that also include Naruto's unorthodox method of fighting. This isn't one of those situations where he or the others in the matter could ever beat Naruto or Kiyomi, even if they use underhanded tricks. They were only prolonging the inevitable. I wonder if this is going to end with a conclusion unlike the previous one, which has no clear winner, said Ino, as the others also had the same thought as well. I guess I underestimated you a little, my bad, apologized Kiyomi as she came onto a fully healed Tsunade who smirked. I may no longer be in my prime, but I can still put up a fight. I did say I won't make it easy for you, Tsunade reminded the girl of her promise. Tsunade knew that Kiyomi was stronger than her and the conclusion of the battle would end in Kiyomi's favor unless she used a Byakugan seal, in which her chances of winning is high, but she doesn't want to use it because it's hard to recharge the Byakugan seal again, and then again, she doesn't know the full extent of both Naruto's and Kiyomi's strength. Front kick, said Kiyomi after having dug her foot to the ground, making a small dent on the ground before releasing a kick, resulting in the air pressure to be released, which cut the ground in half, heading for Tsunade, impacting her immediately, which sent her flying through the forest. Tsunade appeared injured but still capable of fighting back as she went for an axe kick, only for her flying attack to be intercepted by Kiyomi using straw cutter, which is a kick performed in a diagonal motion at the neck of a person forming a scissor shape as legs go down using the left leg. If this wasn't enough, Kiyomi followed it with cutter hanger in which she held Tsunade's leg, limiting her follow-up option. This was done so fast that it had surprised and took Tsunade off guard, which allowed Kiyomi to perform her next attack. Three-pronged strike, said Kiyomi as she executed consecutive kicks at the head 3 times in a row from right, followed straight away from the opposite direction, then from behind. Tsunade attempted to evade the attack, but that only increased the damage and made her disoriented as she stumbled and fell to her knees. This left Tsunade open for another attack as she quickly performed the necessary hand signs. Pain. Great fireball, shouted Kiyomi as she spewed a large ball of condensed flame towards Tsunade, who wasn't fast enough to evade due to the previous attack and was quickly engulfed in the fire, which bombarded a portion of the forest of the training ground. Kiyomi looked at the slug who had just broken out of her genjutsu that she had put through when she appeared. She smiled, being impressed at how it broke one of her strongest genjutsu, but it was far from being the best that she had. Lady Tsunade, shouted Kitsuyu as it rushed towards Tsunade to assist her in healing. Kiyomi had let the slug go because she wanted to enjoy the battle, since technically this wasn't a death battle. Kiyomi walked at a leisure pace to where Tsunade had landed to see her still injured, but the stubborn Godame Hokage wasn't planning on showing a weak side of her to Konoha, since she was still their leader. Tsunade decided to do a reckless stunt which involved punching the ground, causing the entire surrounding area to be leveled, which definitely surprised Kiyomi enough where she jumped in the air. But this is the position that the Godame had wanted, as she appeared quickly above Kiyomi. Kiyomi reacted by bringing her arm to guard herself, but Tsunade punched her in the stomach which sent Kiyomi flying to the ground, causing even more devastation to the surrounding area. Tsunade winced slightly as she looked at her bruised fist, realizing that Kiyomi had struck her hand during the punch. Landing gracefully on the ground, Tsunade breathed slightly, getting tired from the prolonged fight, but she felt like she could somehow manage to cause this match to reach a draw. Lady Tsunade, I think you should stop the match. We both know that this prolonged fight will leave you drained. While she seems unfazed, Kitsuyu pointed out worriedly, while Tsunade scoffed. I can't back down, Kitsuyu. I have my pride as a Senju and as the Godame Hokage. How can the village trust me with their safety if their Hokage is giving up against a brat, said Tsunade, while Kitsuyu went silent, understanding her sentiment. I will show Tsunade's voice was cut off as out of nowhere, she coughed a large pool of blood as she gripped her mouth in surprise, wondering what just happened. Looking behind her, Tsunade was stunned when she saw what appeared to be a large sword piercing her and pinning her to the ground underneath her. Many swords started to pierce all over her body, leaving her with a lot of pain as she screamed. Lady Tsunade, Kitsuyu called out worriedly, seeing her summoner looking paralyzed with her pupil wide and mouth open, as if she was spasming out of nowhere. Erg was the only thing that was coming out of Tsunade's mouth at this point, which left Kitsuyu even more worried as she didn't sense anything odd, but she knew that Tsunade was somehow trapped in Genjutsu. Pandora. Nightmare, spoke Kiyomi through the debris and dust from Tsunade's earlier attack. Kitsuyu reacted quickly by taking a defensive position as she started to spew as much acid as she could, which impacted against Kiyomi, but to Kitsuyu's surprise, Kiyomi came unharmed. Sorry, but once I donned this armor, anything you throw at me won't work, said Kiyomi, which surprised Kitsuyu as she saw that throughout the whole fight, ever since Kiyomi put the armor on and she was unharmed and had realized how helpless the situation is. What did you do to Lady Tsunade? Demanded Kitsuyu, still trying to protect Tsunade, who was still stuck in the illusion that Kiyomi created. Didn't you hear? This is Pandora Nightmare, my most powerful Genjutsu. Unlike the normal Genjutsu, whatever goes inside the Genjutsu is felt by her. That be intense pain, extreme cold, imagine disease DCT. Said Kiyomi, revealing her power much to the shock of Kitsuyu and the others. The only ones who could break out of it so far were Naruto-kun, as well as Mira-san, said Kiyomi, since Naruto and Mira were the only ones who could overpower it and overcome it. What? Kurenai shouted in pure shock at what she had just heard right now. What Kiyomi had just described reminded her of Yakumo Genjutsu. The only difference is that Kiyomi's Genjutsu was stronger with a chance of it being taught. Kurenai wasn't the only one who was shocked by the revelation, since many, especially the shinobi and those who are aware of the shinobi arts, were left stunned in silence. This is just broken and ridiculous on so many levels. I thought Naruto was already ridiculously powerful, but now we have this, said Asuma in disbelief. His cigarette had already fallen on the ground at this point. This might be game over for Lady Hokage, said Kakashi with his Sharingan out, trying to see what the hell just happened, but even he couldn't understand what happened. Indeed. If we were to take the words of our youthful female Uchiha, once Lady Hokage is out of it, she will be mentally and physically exhausted to fight back, said Guy with a hint of surprise, but tried to be serious, since this had surprised him. Kurenai was salivating at this as she mentally noted to ask Kiyomi the hell she had just done. Kurenai had dedicated years of her life to become the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha, and a Genjutsu that leaves the enemy in a mental, as well as a physical pain, is something she wanted to learn. What if this is some kind of ability that comes with the armor, thought Kurenai, feeling dejected at the thought. I still can't analyze this Genjutsu, as she calls it, said Kakashi in surprise as he pushed his headband down to cover his Sharingan eyes. That's a surprise for you, my rival, to be unable to analyze it, even with your Sharingan, said Guy, definitely surprised and fully cemented in his mind how powerful the Genjutsu is. I'm starting to worry right now. The fact that Lady Hokage can't break out of the Genjutsu despite her excellent chakra control shows how good it is, added Asuma, since Tsunade still looked like she was paralyzed. Is this true? Asked Jiraiya as he turned to look at Naruto, who was unfazed, showing that he had seen it before and knew what it was. Yes. Her Pandora Nightmare actually affected me at the beginning, but I had eventually managed to overpower it. She is just being humble, but it's actually a very powerful ability, Naruto praised Kiyomi. This is utterly ridiculous. This would seriously put any of Itachi Genjutsu to shame, said Jiraiya in disbelief, knowing how powerful Itachi is. This is just some of her ability, she still has a lot more to show, but I doubt she will show it all like what we both did. Besides, Tsunade still didn't show her Byakugan seal, so Kiyomi wouldn't go all out as well, said Naruto, much to the shock of Jiraiya. Jiraiya knew that only Sage Mode can have the chance of defeating her, and he was still unsure if his Sage Mode at this point is enough. If she was holding back like Naruto claims, Jiraiya is not really confident that anything he does could work, as only an underhanded method could get him to even the match. Isn't that a surprise, eh, Itachi? Kisame asked with a grin as he nudged onto his partner Itachi, who watched as his sister fought against Tsunade. Itachi tried to keep himself from being surprised, but he was failing at doing so, since his expression showed it all. The fact that his sister can make a powerful genjutsu that even left the goddamn Hokage stuck in it for as long as she did surprised him. Even more was the fact that the genjutsu can make the victim feel everything that goes inside. Only something on the level of the Manjikyu Sharingan can do this, and that made his lips curl into a smile, obviously proud of his own little sister. So the great Kinslayer is capable of smiling. You see something new every day, teased Kisame, as Itachi's attention shifted back to his partner and let out a sigh. Itachi trusted Kisame to some degree since the two are partners for this long, but Itachi wouldn't hesitate to kill Kisame if the former Kirin were to turn his blade against him or betray him. They had come to Konoha merely to get information on the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, which happened to be Naruto, and the fight between him and Jiraiya was eye-opener for them since it showed them how strong he is. Kiyomi was an added bonus since Itachi can't see how well she was doing on her own and how strong she is, and he was definitely proud and happy. Itachi now doesn't know if he wants to help capture Naruto since the latter is bound to become his brother-in-law given how much his sister loves him. For that reason, Itachi hesitated, not that he planned to harm Naruto to begin with, but if Naruto's life was endangered, he would do his best to help keep him safe, but he doubted he would need to do so, given how powerful Naruto is, and with the direction the Akatsuki are going to, by the time they're ready to deal with Naruto, it's going to be late for them. It seems Lady Hokage is in an unfavorable situation and is going to lose, Itachi stated, well Kisame had expected that much. I mean that's expected if she is still stuck in that genjutsu. Honestly, I don't want to see how powerful it is knowing that Uchihas tend to have surprises for their genjutsu, said Kisame, while Itachi decided to take it as a compliment. Let's continue watching till the very end, said Itachi, while Kisame had no complaints with Itachi's decision. Chapter 19. Conclusion. Kiyomi vs Tsunade. It's been almost 5 minutes and Tsunade was still stuck in the genjutsu, leaving a lot of people in shock at what they had just witnessed. Tsunade is widely known for being the best medical ninja in the Elemental Nation, with chakra control so good that she should normally break out of any genjutsu. This left everyone even more bewildered and amazed by the sight of the goddamn Hokage being incapacitated by a genjutsu, and for this long since many expected that she'd have broken the genjutsu already. Many had even wondered what kind of genjutsu is it to put their Hokage in such a state. Tsunade hadn't broken out of the genjutsu yet, said Jiraiya, clearly worried since this wasn't normal to him, and looked at Naruto wanting to gauge his reaction, while also to gain understanding of what was happening. Naruto was obviously looking at the match calmly, knowing exactly what the technique Kiyomi had used. The reason why Tsunade could never break out of the illusion is because it's not a genjutsu, to be exact. Genjutsu is a chakra-based illusion that can be broken as long as you have the chakra control needed to flush out the effect of the genjutsu from your own system. Kiyomi's Pandora Nightmare worked differently as it didn't require chakra for it to be used. This was just one of the standard abilities that Pandora grants its user among other abilities. He had experienced the technique before and even he was ensnared in it for a period of time before he had managed to override it due to being naturally stronger, so he was able to use his own strong will to break out of the illusion, something not many can do. I think we both already know who the winner is, said Naruto with a small smile as he looked at Jiraiya, who looked hesitant since he had expected the match to at least conclude to a draw or something like that. You should declare it as such since Tsunade is already incapacitated and if Kiyomi was an enemy, Tsunade would have been killed many times already, Naruto said, reminding Jiraiya. Jiraiya hesitated since he didn't know how Tsunade would react to this. Would she punch him because he interrupted the fight? After all, Tsunade may not show it, but she has her pride as a senju. This also left him worried about whether Tsunade would have her pride hurt after being defeated by someone who is old enough to be her granddaughter or even her daughter. Or would she just gracefully accept defeat? This may be a possibility, but he doubted Tsunade would be happy. She is still the goddamn Hokage, and she needed to show that she was stronger so that the populace of Konoha could feel safe with her in charge. And again, knowing that Konoha has these two powerful juggernauts for teens capable of fighting on equal grounds as Sannin can be very comforting for many since they can feel safe with the next generation. After all, with the Uchiha clan being reduced to one loyal Konoha shinobi, which is Kiyomi, and two traitorous Uchihas, which were Sasuke and Itachi, with one training under Orochimaru and the other being a rogue shinobi part of a dangerous organization. The death of the Yondaime Hokage and many other capable shinobi during the Nine-Tail attack and later on the death of the Sandaime Hokage had made many question if Konoha is safe anymore since many of the heavy hitters were dead. Shouldn't we wait a little bit and see how this goes? Asked Jiraiya, thinking that Tsunade could still come out of the genjutsu if given time to break the powerful genjutsu, but Naruto shook his head. The longer you prolong this match when it's already over, the more Tsunade would get hurt. Kiyomi is holding back right now from using a genjutsu that would accidentally cause Tsunade to go into a coma, with the worst case turning her brain into vegetables, said Naruto, which made Jiraiya pale at the thought of Konoha losing its Hokage like this. And no way, said Jiraiya shakily, since he didn't know that Kiyomi was capable of doing something that only the Manjikyu Sharingan could pull off, such as the Tsukiyomi, which had left Sasuke in a coma until Tsunade got him out of it. Besides, with how open Tsunade currently is, Kiyomi will only have to just knock her out and be done with it, said Naruto, since right now Tsunade was defenseless and can't guard herself or fight at this point. This is just utterly ridiculous, it's only been 2 years with it almost being 3 years, and yet they're strong enough to challenge us Anan. What kind of monster will they become in another year or two? Thought Jiraiya in his head, knowing that both Naruto and Kiyomi will become monsters. You're right, brat, let's go, said Jiraiya with a dejected sigh as he stood up as well from his seat. I'm no brat, you perverted old geezer, said Naruto as he took off along with Jiraiya towards the training ground. Naruto was clearly proud of Kiyomi since she had shown everyone what a true kunoichi is truly made of. Maybe this will show everyone why he had chosen her to be by his side. You can't tell me this isn't just broken putting Lady Tsunade in a genjutsu that even she can't break out of, is unheard of, shouted Ino in shock at what she had just witnessed with her own eyes. She knew Kiyomi was strong, given that she was an Uchiha by blood in the earlier fight, but she didn't know she was this overpowered to pull such a stunt on the goddamn Hokage. It seems the conclusion of the battle had been decided. Why? Because Lady Hokage can no longer fight, which would grant Kiyomi-san an automatic victory for incapacitation, said Shino, who is calm, but yet one could hear that he was also shocked. I could already see both Naruto-san and Kiyomi-san being promoted to Jonin at this point. They had already proven themselves to be capable of fighting a Sannin on equal grounds, if not overwhelming them, said Niji, with a little bit of shock, while a few nodded in agreement. I'd question their sanity and intelligence if they didn't promote them, said Temari with a sigh as she rubbed the temple of her head. She was going to obviously report this to her two brothers, including the Suna Council. It's only been 3 years since the invasion of Konoha, which failed terribly. Still, their betrayal had resulted in the death of many Konoha shinobi, including the Sandaime Hokage, so even if Orochimaru was the one to land the finishing blow, they were still held as accomplices to Orochimaru. The only reason Konoha was lenient with them was because of the goddamn Hokage Tsunade Senju, who sympathized with them given their predicament in regards to their daimyo outsourcing their missions to Konoha. There is also the fact that Orochimaru had disguised himself as the Yondaime Kazekage, so they had no choice but to obey their Kazekage, whom they didn't know was already dead and was being impersonated. Regardless, they still had to prove themselves to be trustworthy, which is why she was sent to Konoha to serve as a representative of Suna and to further strengthen the bond with both their villages. One of the main reasons she was made the liaison was because she was the best politician in her village and she would know when there was foul play being made by Konoha. The Suna Council would want to know this so they wouldn't do something stupid like declaring another war, which she doubted Gaara will allow since he is the Kazekage. Now I'm scared, please remind me not to piss her off. I don't want to know what she would do with her genjutsu if I ever piss her off, said Kiba, a little bit worried and afraid at this point. This is the second time you said that, said Tenten, a little bit annoyed, but it was mostly due to seeing her own idol getting thrashed like this, but then again she has to remember that this was an Uchiha fighting down there. Master had lost, Sakura said in clear shock at what she had just witnessed. It was one thing for Kiyomi to exchange fists with Tsunade, but outright putting Tsunade in a genjutsu that she could never break from was unheard of. This was just another reminder that despite the 2 years of extensive training under Tsunade, she was still inferior to Naruto, who had widened the gap of strength between them, and she didn't doubt that Sasuke was also in a league of his own, given that he was the apprentice of Orochimaru. When she trained under Tsunade, Sakura had hoped that she would be strong enough to stand by both her teammates' sides instead of watching their backs as they constantly protected her while she was the damsel in distress. Sakura thought that she was now a decently strong kunoichi, given that she was trained by Tsunade herself, but Kiyomi had blown her expectation away and showed her how inferior she is compared to her. Sakura envied Kiyomi because she could see that Naruto trusted her the most to have his own back. She wanted Naruto to trust her to have his back as well, but she doubted he trusts her to begin with, given how she had treated him in the past when they were genin. Even during the second bell test, Naruto and Kiyomi worked together so well that she realized that she was only getting in their way. She was just a third party that is trying to fit in with a group who was way out of her league. Hinata sat there face blank as she saw Kiyomi overwhelm Asanin gradually throughout the fight. It was just another reminder of how weak she was when compared to the Uchiha princess who had earned Naruto's love. Kiyomi was everything she wished to be but couldn't be. Kiyomi was relaxed completely as she could sense that Naruto and Jiraiya were coming here to stop the fight. She had won by incapacitating Tsunade and rendering her unable to fight back. I wonder if this was a little bit too much, thought Kiyomi as she realized that using Pandora Nightmare may have been a little bit of an overkill, and she knows that Tsunade would have her pride wounded. Kiyomi hoped that Tsunade would not hold it against her, since this was a battle at the end of the day. It was then that both Naruto and Jiraiya landed in front of her, with Jiraiya going to Tsunade's side grimacing slightly. "The match is over, please remove the Jinjutsu," said Jiraiya, as Kiyomi nodded her head as she snapped her finger, causing the effect of Pandora Nightmare to be cancelled. Tsunade fell to the ground with Jiraiya obviously catching her, as while she still remained conscious, it was obvious that the illusion had taken a great toll on her mind. What happened?" asked Tsunade, feeling dizzy as Jiraiya held her in his arms carefully so as not to hurt her. Lady Tsunade Shizune shouted as she also appeared as well and was on her mentor's side using the mystical palm technique to heal her. Sorry about that," said Kiyomi in a sincere voice while still trying to sound cheerful, which made Tsunade realize that she had lost. "So I lost?" asked Tsunade, feeling somewhat bitter to have lost against a person who could be considered her daughter or granddaughter. "Yes, you lost, we had to call the match since you've been stuck in her Jinjutsu for a long time," said Jiraiya looking away, while Shizune looked down to focus on healing Tsunade. I can't understand, I've tried to remove the Jinjutsu, but it didn't work," said Tsunade, feeling bewildered as she felt her senses return back to her. Tsunade was of course familiar with Jinjutsu that can't be broken even if you try to break it and needed other methods to break it, but no matter what trick she tried, she could not break the illusion. "Pandora Nightmare is a Jinjutsu that comes with wearing my armor. So you can see it's a special Jinjutsu like that of the Kurama clan," said Kiyomi to Tsunade, who nodded as she sat properly on the ground. "Lady Tsunade, please don't move too much, you're currently in no condition to move," said Shizune, hoping Tsunade would not hurt herself by trying to move, but Tsunade ignored her as she placed her own palm on her forehead. The green glow appeared before she removed her hand, revealing that she was now fine. She had healed herself completely and stood up properly, obviously a little annoyed at her loss. "Can't believe I've been taken down this easily," said Tsunade with a small frown, but Kiyomi didn't want bad blood between them. "I could have lost the match if you used that seal on your forehead," said Kiyomi, but Tsunade shook her head. "Don't be modest. I admit I've lost to you, so you don't need to make me feel better. It means I've gotten weaker, but that's expected since I haven't even trained properly for decades," said Tsunade with a small frown. Aside from being old, something she would never admit out loud, but she also hadn't had proper training aside from the time when she trained Sakura, but her apprentice was nowhere strong enough to push her to her limits. Being a Hokage also made her stuck behind her desk, and as such, she didn't have any major fight beside the one against Orochimaru and Kabuto, but that was 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. "You can arrange it where you have a spar with Kiyomi to keep your skills up to date," said Naruto, suggesting his own opinion, but Tsunade shook her own head. "I'd love that, but I'm Hokage, Shizune won't let me go anywhere unless I finish the paperwork," said Tsunade as she started to curse Hiruzen. "I see why not use the shadow clones for the paperwork," asked Naruto as he looked at Tsunade, who had frozen in her place once she heard Naruto's suggestion and blinked a few times. What?" asked Tsunade shakily at Naruto's suggestion to her life problems while Naruto looked unfazed completely. The others aside from Kiyomi were stunned as well. "If I remember correctly, the shadow clone was created by your grand-uncle, since it has a feature of transferring the clone's memory to its user. You can have 2-3 clones to do your paperwork while you can relax somewhere, and once they dispel, you can know what the clone knows," said Naruto casually, not realizing he solved Tsunade's life problem that even tormented Hiruzen for decades. There was silence among the small group. Unluckily for the spectators, they didn't hear what was being said, so they missed such a golden opportunity. "It was that as simple," Tsunade shouted, going into shock after 3 years of being tormented by those evil paperwork, only to be solved by Naruto. Shouted Shizune in shock as well, since normally the paperwork goes through her first to be processed to see what should be seen by Tsunade and what should not, so she also had to go through the paperwork. She didn't quite have the reserve that Naruto, Tsunade and Kiyomi have, but she has enough to do too that could assist her. The thought of having those clones to make her life easier made her lips curled into a smile. This also meant that Tsunade will finally be working, albeit her shadow clone would be the one doing most of the work, but at least things will go smoothly without her needing to drag her mentor out from the bar. I'm surprised you people didn't know. I thought it was common knowledge, but I guess I was wrong," said Naruto calmly. "Naruto, I'm giving you SS rank pay for this," said Tsunade giddily at the prospect of finally kicking back and relaxing as she launched herself, pulling Naruto into a bone-crushing hug. "Okay, I'm happy for you," said Naruto with somewhat surprise, but didn't feel much pain since he endured worse than this. "I'm pretty sure Sensei would be crying in the grave right now," said Jiraiya with an amused smile, since he knows that Hiruzen had it the worst in terms of dealing with paperwork. Whenever he visited his sensei, Jiraiya would always see him struggling on a daily basis to do the paperwork without going nuts. He knew Hiruzen would be crying now in his grave and would probably feel betrayed that Naruto never told him something like that, but then again, Jiraiya doubted Naruto knew until a year or two ago. Even then, Hiruzen had hid a lot of secrets from Naruto, which include his heritage, and at one point had even tried to hide Naruto's burden from him, so he considered this even. Sucks to be him. Now I don't have to spend the rest of my tenure as a Hokage in eternal suffering, said Tsunade with a grin. She would have enjoyed seeing her sensei reaction, but alas he was dead. Tsunade-sama, we should get back to announce your decision in regards to both their promotion, said Shizune, while Tsunade scoffed. What's more to discuss, Shizune? Those two are already proven to be cage-level shinobi. I only entertained this whole thing to make sure that no one would challenge me on my decision, said Tsunade, while Shizune squeaked slightly as she muttered an apology under her breath. Neat. So we're going to be Jonin, said Kiyomi with a smile, while Tsunade smirked at the enthusiastic answer of Kiyomi. I'm still bitter about my loss, but good job. I guess you've got Itachi's talent in you, Tsunade said, complimenting Kiyomi, who smiled at the praise that she received from the goddamn Hokage. Sheesh, those two are barely even in their prime, and yet they're already surpassing us, said Jiraiya, while Naruto smirked at him. The passage of time is truly a bitch, isn't it, pervy sage, said Naruto, while Kiyomi tried to stifle her laughter at the comment made at the toad sage, who was not happy. Haha, laugh it off, sheesh, kids have no respect for their elders, said Jiraiya as he walked away, while Tsunade shook her head in amusement as they both also walked outside and back to the stadium. How troublesome, we have an Itachi prodigy in the form of his little sister, said Shikaku, shaking his head at the headache he was receiving from the conclusion of the match. That armor intrigues me, said Shibi as he adjusted his dark sunglasses as he had heard the earlier explanation in regards to her genjutsu. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the talk of the entire village and will be brought into the next council meeting, said Choza with a small frown. This is why I say troublesome, those greedy civilians will try to stick their own noses into things that do not concern them. I'm pretty sure neither Naruto nor Kiyomi will ever want to divulge their secret, said Shikaku, while the others mutely nodded in agreement. A genjutsu that not even Lady Tsunade can break piques my interest greatly. The armor also intrigues me since it's the first time I saw sentient armor, said Inoichi with curiosity. Being a shinobi that specializes in extracting information and peering into people's brains using his clan's special technique to know their secrets had made him naturally curious about a lot of things, which is why he wanted to know about the armor. Unlike Ino, he had good control of his own urges. It would be wrong if he were to look into someone's mind without the clearance to do so, or that would be breaking the law, since it's a breach of a person's privacy. The same applies to the Hyuga, since those of the Byakugan can naturally see the chakra network, but also can see under a person's clothes. There are also rules placed for them in which they're strictly forbidden from ever using their taijutsu anywhere near it, such as the bathhouses. It seems she is far more stronger than her other disgraceful brother, at least she shows promise, said Hiashi as he acknowledged Kiyomi's strength. Hinata, I hope this match will motivate you to become stronger, rather than losing your own confidence. Use this frustration in your heart to reach a new height, which I know you have deep inside you, thought Hiashi, as he glanced at his daughter who looked unresponsive, which slightly worried him. Despite popular beliefs, he loved both his daughters to death. If he didn't, he could have easily slapped her with a cage bird seal like the normal Hyuga procedures, but he did everything in his power to prevent her from getting branded. He had tried to give her the cold shoulder in hopes that she would work hard to gain his acknowledgement and tried to get her little sister involved, but that only destroyed her confidence. Hiashi tried to get her frustrated, but that didn't work, but now he hopes her frustration towards seeing Kiyomi would motivate Hinata to train harder to reach her potential. He was not ignorant enough to not know about her deep affection towards Naruto. He knew of her stalking and had begrudgingly allowed it to happen. He didn't have anything against Naruto because of his burden, but he had a problem with Naruto's antics of causing trouble and didn't want him to drag his own daughter into his pranks. He only allowed her to watch Naruto in hopes that seeing Naruto's unwavering perseverance to prove himself to the villagers could get her to work really hard, and she did, albeit the pace was quite slow, but it was still a progress in his eyes, which was enough to stop some of the elders from trying to brand her since she wasn't a lost cause. He knows that Hinata is extremely jealous of Kiyomi for managing to take Naruto for herself. While it was unfortunate that Hinata had lost her crush to someone else, this could serve as a wake-up call that the world will not stop for her or for anyone in the matter. He wanted to comfort her, but Hinata needed to get over it by herself. She was a shinobi from a main Hyuga branch family, and while she lost her clan-era status to Hanabi, she was still a Hyuga. He knows she can overcome it by herself because he believed in her. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.